got our limit all 3 days, so we did pretty good that day,
Yeah.
or that weekend. Last weekend was so ugly. And this weekend he'll go tomorrow. No, he'll go Friday. But we're gonna go to Medora with the kids this weekend, then camp, so.
Supposed to be a nice weekend.
Yeah, it's gonna be gorgeous.
I saw you at June 3rd meeting in there. Did you put Dwight's comment in there?
I didn't until the board approves it, and it wasn't much, so it'll be handwritten in there. It gets handwritten in there, and then you sign it. That's normally how additions go unless there's pages long of them. And then I'll add it to the typed part before I send it to the minutes. Because the board has to approve
Okay.
that addition.
I thought we,
So you handwrite it in there?
And then I'll type it in the Word document that's in on my computer, and then that's what I send to the paper for the official minutes.
And then you're both initial it, probably,
Yeah.
the handwriting.
There's many pages that are handwritten and they change things, they just crossed off and written, and then you sign after that to attest.
Okay, that's news to me. Didn't know that.
Now, aren't you glad you came?
Well,
learn every day.
that's good information. So it's handwritten in there, and then I would initial those handwritten notes and then sign it at the bottom. Is that correct?
And you know what? It's 9:00.
It's 9 o'clock. Good morning, everybody. We'll call our meeting to order, please. And we'll begin with Shanna doing a roll call.
Dwight Berger,
Aye.
Wayne Enzi,
Here.
Dwayne Shire,
Here.
Marv Schwer,
Here.
Merlin Dahl.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next thing is to approve the agenda.
Down there and-
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of things questioned here now. Are we going to untable the battery service contract?
Oh,
I didn't,
hold on. I think, do you have the right agenda?
No, he does not.
yeah, I do. Is it, where is that located?
Oh, it's not, Jim hasn't gotten his quotes yet, it's gonna be on the next agenda, he's still waiting for one more.
So just the one we got's all we got?
Yep, so
Oh, okay.
he's waiting for, I think, one or two more to come in.
And my other one was budget, but I think that'll be covered under several of these, so. That's all I had.
Is there any other corrections or additions to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second that, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Merlin, how you vote?
Aye.
Wayne?
Aye.
Dwayne?
Aye.
Dwight?
Aye.
I vote aye. Motion passed. Next thing on the agenda is to approve the minutes of June 3rd. And Shanna, just, first off, I'm gonna hand out a handout because you asked for this not too long ago, and I got it. And Merlin asked for it also, and even Shanna asked for it. We're doing things okay, just that I made this statement and you said you wanted verification. Here it is. You said you wanted a legal opinion on that, so. But that is just a statement saying that we have to approve the previous meeting's minutes before we move on. And I thought I had a copy for you, Dan. If anybody doesn't want their copy, please give one to Dan. Thank you. So, is there any corrections or additions to the minutes of June 3rd?
Dwight had suggested an addition for the board to approve. I emailed that out. So I don't know if you guys want to add that in or not.
Will you please tell us where that was going to be added? Is that,
Well, I have,
Second page, second paragraph.
I highlighted it, do you want to look at what I said?
yeah, because I have mine on legal paper, so it's different.
And I didn't, I would please read that.
Okay, so it's on page 2. And second paragraph, about the board discussing appeals and changes from the 2019 Board of Equalization meeting. If you go a few sentences down, Berger replied he wasn't picking on one parcel, and Dwayne can go through the list to check on any parcel he wants. That's what Berger asked to include after Shire asked why just one parcel was getting picked on.
And what was the end of it, you said?
You asked to reply that you weren't picking on just one parcel, and Dwayne can go through the list to check on any parcel he wants.
Any of us can.
But you were replying to Dwayne.
Right, I was replying to
No.
Dwayne, yeah.
That's,
And actually, hang on just a second, guys. I have it verbatim
yeah,
from the video.
I summarized what you said to make it into a sentence, so I don't, you have to use your words.
Berger said, "I'm not picking on anyone, Dwayne." Shire said, "It appears to me this is, and I know you explained yours, but there are others on the sheet." Berger stated, "We can direct Cindy to check on any of them we feel aren't correct."
Oh, that's what I want in there, verbatim, whatever I said, because I don't remember from one meeting to the next.
And that would go in that spot that I had highlighted there, right?
Yep. Okay, just give me a second.
And I think up on top, since we take roll call now, you include the state's attorney. I think you should start putting it in the minutes when she enters the meeting, instead of at the beginning of it. You don't have to change these minutes, but from now on.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, let me, go ahead.
So, Mr. Berger, do you want that if she leaves and comes back and leaves and comes back?
No, just what time she enters the meeting.
The first time?
Yep.
Okay.
Let me ask the board a question, and Shannon, I don't know if you can read and listen too. Girls can multitask, I can't.
All right.
I'm gonna yeah, I don't need this is garbage, right? Okay, you done writing?
Yep.
Okay, if she's done writing, she can read it, and if you agree to it, I'm gonna sign the minutes.
Berger stated, "We can direct Cindy to check on any of them we feel aren't correct." I'm gonna pass
Is that
down.
agreeable with you? Okay. First, we need a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have a second?
Second. Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Merlin, how do you vote?
Aye.
Dwight?
Aye.
Dwayne?
No,
Wes? I mean,
wait,
Wayne?
I'll vote aye.
And I vote aye. Motion passed. I got a brain lock there.
That's all right.
It happens more and more all the time.
It's the heat.
Oh, yeah, we'll use that.
Nothing to do with our age.
Whoops, leave that open so she can sign it too. I should initial those comments.
Wow, it's only 10 minutes after and we got the minutes approved already.
Well, that's good.
It is.
Okay, review and approve bills.
You had an updated bills spreadsheet from Gwen with the red on it. That's the right one.
The red one? The
Yeah,
one-
she said
okay.
she had done line 60 as 180 instead of $90, so. It was $90, the first, the one you got yesterday was $90 higher.
This Armor Interactive, number 10, that's service agreement for the year?
That's the monthly service agreement plus the server.
Expensive stuff, isn't it?
The server was $14,800, I believe. The bill should be in there, Dwight. Close to the top. It should be the $18.81 plus the server.
They didn't add a new server, did they?
Yeah, they're replacing the server.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was in the budget for this year. We've
Okay.
had trouble the last
Okay.
month and a half. We'd come to work on Mondays and nobody's drives would be up, and I asked him what the deal was, and he said it's because the server,
Because normally their contract a month is like 14 or
18.
18, yeah.
Yeah, so she put it all together.
Okay.
You got a long weekend server that doesn't come up till
Does
Tuesday.
anybody wanna see the bill for
It's a
the
3-day
server?
weekend.
I don't need to see it. Are there any other questions on the bills?
I don't get too many of that.
No.
So what were the, number 30, Donovan and Kay for $909 attorney's fees? What is that?
That was, yeah,
That is
we had that here a second ago.
the,
He had,
Read board? No, the water.
isn't it the point, what do you, court-appointed attorneys? We pay those through the, clerk of court's office.
Oh, okay.
yeah, here it is.
And number 27, IT department. Help me with that one.
That's the same every month, $933.12.
What are we receiving for that?
That's the ITD, the service we get over in the sheriff's department.
Okay. Some of these, I know you repeat, and please be patient with me, I don't remember all the time.
Who,
Yeah,
that
but-
24, who is
I
Fred
don't need to see
Johnson?
Kathy's father-in-law,
Who?
Kathy Johnson's father-in-law.
Oh, okay.
If there'd be no further questions on the bills, I would entertain a motion to accept the treasurer's bills.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Any further discussion on the treasurer's bills? Any further discussion on treasurer's bills? Wayne?
How about I?
Dwayne?
Aye.
Merlin?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion passed. Can we have a motion on the regular bills?
For $80,913.30.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular bills.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Okay, we've had some brief discussion. Do you need a little more time to look at some of these?
I'm good, I got questions on the ones that I was concerned about.
Okay, if there's is there any further discussion? We have a motion and a second to approve the regular bills. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Dwayne, how you vote?
Aye.
Merlin?
Aye.
Wayne?
Aye.
Dwight?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion passed. Bills are accepted. Cindy's not here ready yet, so let's talk about NDSU extension highlights. I guess we can review that. Talk about May sheriff's fees. We have May sheriff's fees of $6,878.18. We have a motion to approve or deny.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I bet that's to approve.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Can't deny income, can we?
Yeah, we'll show 'em.
Wayne, how do you vote?
I'll vote aye.
Dwayne?
Aye.
Dwight?
Aye.
Merlin?
Aye.
And I vote aye, motion passed. May recorder's fees of $6,689. And we have a motion to accept or deny.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on the May recorder's fees of $6,689? Any further discussion? Dwayne?
Aye.
Merlin?
Aye.
Dwight?
Aye.
Wayne?
I'll vote aye.
I vote aye, motion passed. What if we get done early? I'm just kidding.
We all fall out of our chairs probably.
Okay, let's just keep walking down the list here. Landfill tonnage report. Do you want to give that or you want to wait for your portfolio?
Well, I think you got the report there, it's good.
Yep, we can just review it. Okay, we'll mark that off.
Busy.
All right. You doing the cost review?
Yeah, we have time for that, I think.
Okay.
Review of costs and revenue projections to the end of the year. And I asked Shannon to put something together and was,
Pass one.
let her walk through it. Whoops, I only need one. You get the rest.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Okay, I contacted Nadako 2 weeks ago when you guys asked me to do this, and I just got the information from them yesterday, late afternoon. So I tried to compile it and do the numbers the best I can. I started out with our balance as of January 1st, and then the far right is the balance as of December 31st, the projected balance. The January through May revenue and the January through May expenditures are accurate numbers because those are what came out on the trial balance for May month end. The June through December expenditures is the budgeted expenditures minus what we've already spent, so it's not changing anybody's budget or lessening it. So if everybody spends their budget, those would be the June to December expenditures, of course, if they.
So those are budgeted expenditures.
Yep, because I didn't get anything back from any departments saying where they could cut or whatnot. So those are the expenditures from June to December. The June to December revenue are the numbers that I use based upon the information I received from Nadako yesterday. They gave me a new state aid number, which was, hold on, let me get the exact. It appeared to be about 10% less.
Okay, start over again. Which column are you talking about right now?
The June through December revenue.
Third one over.
Third one over.
Got it?
So when I went through the numbers that they gave me, it looked like it was down about 10%,
When you say it, which ones?
the state aid distribution. So any political sub that receives state aid, I went through, of course, and took off the revenue that they've already received and took 10% off of the less of what's remaining for the year. And that's how I came up with the revenue. They projected the state highway distribution fund to go down about 13%. So we had projected for state highway that we would get 1.4 million, and now it appears that we're gonna get about 913,000.
So if I go down here to state highway under unorganized road, where it says state highway, it's going to be reduced about how much?
From, I believe, was it 1.044 down to 913,310. You'd have to go back and look in your budget,
I have
probably.
it with me, but I don't need it. What was the percentage roughly?
13 roughly.
Okay,
Yep. So that's how I came up with the January through May revenue. And then, of course, it just calculates across, and that's what the projected balance would be for all of our funds. The general fund, we budgeted last year our expenditures and revenues equal. So it looks like it'll be about $300,000 short in the general fund,
It's-
based on the projections.
It shows 123.3.
Well, because we should have ended with the 171,941, because we budgeted straight across.
Oh, that would,
So if you would take that, if you subtract 171 off of the negative 123, you're about 300,000 short. Also, mineral royalties, we budgeted for $100,000 for 2020. And Dawn got notice yesterday, we did receive $52,000 in March, but she got notice yesterday that a company had been overpaying us for 5+ years. So in order to catch up, we won't be receiving any mineral royalties for the next 2.5 years. So that's gonna be $100,000 out of our revenue right away, you know, for starting out for 2021.
Okay, what was that number? About how much less?
For next year,
No, you said this year.
the mineral royalty, that's in the general fund, so it's reflected in there. But it'll be about 50, that alone was $50,000.
And you already subtracted that out of there?
Yep, that's within the general fund.
So on our January to May revenue, you've already subtracted what we're not going to get out of our mineral royalties.
No, out of the June to December revenue, because we already received mineral royalties in March, so that's already in the bank.
Okay.
Down below, you can see I've done the total cash May month end for 2020 was 6.4 million. And I compared it to month end in 2019 of May at 6.1 million. The biggest difference I see is Bank of North Dakota, we have now 1.2 million versus 800,000. Union State Bank, we have 276,000. Last year we had 1.5 million. But our investments are nearly 4.7 million, and we only had 3.5 in there last year. So when the board is seeing that the checking accounts are low, you have to realize that that money is being put into investments, taken out of the checking account and putting into an investment instead of leaving it for operational cash.
Actually, they put in about 1.8 million into investments.
Well, this is the numbers off of the treasurer's balance sheet
Okay, okay.
that I put down here, so.
All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think that's all I really, this is obviously very, very, very preliminary, but it gives us
It's good.
some numbers to work off of.
Okay, now when you look at the total cash in 2020, that 6.4 million, is that the total of all the numbers below it?
Yes,
And the same thing on the other side?
correct.
Okay.
And that comes off of Darby's spreadsheet.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir?
I have a question. I think all of you received a balance sheet report from Dawn a week or so ago, and that shows that as of right now, or at the end of May, I guess it was, that we're $681,000 in the minus column. Now, I'm just wondering, is there sometimes during the rest of the year here, we're gonna be getting some influxes of cash to cover this? Because taxes were all done, because those don't come until December,
Well, taxes
January.
aren't all done. And I'm not sure where this negative 681,000 comes from when I have their balance sheets from 19 and 20. And we have $300,000 more this
You get
year than we had last year. So,
Have you guys all received this?
I don't remember seeing that.
Well, let's pass it down. This is, yeah, we're jumping around because this could have been covered in the treasurer's report, but it's part of what we're discussing. You got one?
Mhm. You have
So
one?
pass these
I don't
down
have
and
one.
give one to,
Shannon doesn't have one.
I'm sorry, can I have one back, please, so I give one to Shannon?
Got enough?
Shanna, this total cash May month end is 6.4 million.
yep,
How much of that is designated?
it's right on there, Dwight. Look-
219,000, that's all that's designated?
Well, that's designated for the landfill, the weed board, the building fund, and the bond. And then the investments are also designated, but they're considered investments. Those are our CDs and our, the ICS account.
But some of them CDs are designated.
Parts of them are.
Yeah.
As far as the highway funds and stuff, that money is committed too, that's,
Well, those are, yeah, but those are levied, those are up top, those are the unorganized road, the aid and secondary roads, that's all.
okay.
So as far as this sheet, I'm not sure, that's just showing, what we receipted and what we've paid. But it obviously doesn't match up to a balance sheet. I mean, the balance sheet is the overall.
Well, Mr.
Go ahead, sir.
What I'm looking at here with this kind of a deal is, you know, we get some figures from you and then we get some figures from here. When we're doing finances, shouldn't it all be funneled to one ending instead of,
Well,
well, we
and you
got
have
this
to
and one that?
realize that, so the payments might be higher from January to June, but we could have had a lot of one-time payments, like a server or all of our computer rotation stuff that we bought at the beginning of the year. All of our dues are due at the beginning of the year. So you have all those one-time payments that are due at the beginning of the year. They're not just the monthly bills. So at the beginning of the year, your payments do look higher and it evens out throughout the rest of the year, because then you're not making those monthly, you're just doing a one-time payment on them. So yes, this may be what we've paid in the last 6 months, but it doesn't portray what the budget actually looks like. This is what portrays what the budget looks like. And the balance sheet portrays what money we have in the bank.
Mr. Chairman, Shannon, so I shouldn't really need to be concerned about the minus $681,000 at this point?
I wouldn't, because at this point, we're all on track for the budget. There's no budget that's overspent at this point.
At this point, okay.
Right.
But the revenues are down on for the budget. About 10%, you said, for the
Well,
revenue.
state aid's gonna go down about 10% starting in June. Yep.
As long as we're on this subject, I'm gonna hand out another deal. It's got to do, I wanna commend Shanna on her report. It's got a lot of information on here that you could take a little bit of time to process. Now, as far as Merlin's comment, we don't need to look at, or we don't need to be too concerned about that 680. That's an indication of receipts and payments, but there are some underlying, like Shanna was explaining, reasons for it. We need to be cognizant of it and be aware of it, but ultimately see how it ties into the budget as a whole. And I think looking at your trial balance and your monthly expenditure report would be better. And this type of report is very, very informative. Did you get a copy of this, Dan? Okay.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm just concerned that we don't come to the end of the fiscal year and say, well, gee whiz, you
We're
know.
gonna talk about that a little bit more yet today.
Okay, good.
Well, and that's where you need to watch your monthly ratios of if it's within the budget. Are you past, if it's 3 months and you're past, are you past 25%, or, you know what I mean? You need to be watching that part of it versus, like I said.
This handout that I gave you, all it shows is, in disregard to mineral royalties, on the bottom, just after I did this, we got that information that we're not gonna get any more mineral royalties for a couple of years, okay? So disregard the mineral royalties. Coal conversion is down, and you see from 17 to 18, it dropped down to 30, we lost 351,000. In 18 to 19, we lost another 70. And in the last 2 years on coal conversion, we've lost $422,000. And coal severance also had a similar drop. All this is telling us is that these two funds, or these two revenue sources, make up about almost 40% of our general fund. And they're continuing to drop. So as we move into the budget, we need to be very, very aware of that, what numbers we put in there for projected revenue. Still got 3 more minutes. So. What else did we have on here? Let's talk about, she said, and I agree with her, and I did an analogy too, but I don't need to even present that. She did a good job with this. We could be down, actually we are, we're gonna be really close to $300,000 short on our general fund. going in, I want you guys to all be aware of that. And that is one of the reasons that I sent out a letter to all the department heads asking them for reductions. And
Their travel budget would be low because of COVID. And with Dina being replaced, there's gonna be a few months in there without anybody working. But I think that goes for every department and their travel budget. None of us went anywhere for 3-4 months, so,
that is gonna make up our 300,000.
no, but I don't think there's much more in departmental budgets you can squeeze out of there.
Okay,
Mr.,
go ahead, sir.
I have 1 minute. And I hate to be hogging all the time here for this meeting, but,
That's why you're here.
what I'm wondering is that, we're gonna be getting these, budget recommendation sheets coming in for our, meetings coming up here in July, I believe, when we're having our hearings on individual budgets. I wonder, would it be prudent on our part to send another letter out to these departments requesting that when they send their budget to us, it comes back with at least a 10% reduction in requests for the next fiscal year. Otherwise, it'll be a real jackpot, I think.
I agree with that. And
Well,
Jeanette, go
the
ahead.
thing, again, I mean, I've been in 2 budgets already, and they realize that there's a shortage, you know, and so the thing isn't what you call fat catted by no means. They have trimmed, realizing, you know, they realize too that state aid, a lot less travel went on, things, you know, came down on the revenue side, so I don't know what we're gonna get if you say, you know, cut 10%. I don't know.
Well, Mr. Chairman and Wayne, I think that as we're looking at this, we're gonna see less state aid coming in, as we've said
Right,
before.
right.
But do we have a real interest out there in increasing our mill levy to cover these costs? Are taxpayers excited about something like that or not? Or something we're gonna have to do just to balance the budget?
Well, hopefully, Merlin, that the entities that I'm dealing with, it's less than last year, so then the mill levy should be less. You know what I'm
You
saying?
mean your taxable valuation will be less? Is that what you're expecting?
Well, the value of that went, probably increased, but us collecting mills, we dropped the mills on our budget, so.
Okay.
So,
Fellow commissioners, do you mind if we table this? We can cover it under budget amendments, and so we can move on to our regular agenda. Is that okay with you? Is that all right with you, Merlin?
Yes.
Okay. All right, it's 9:30. Cindy, go ahead, please.
Okay, under temporary uses, this is for zoning case number 5074. Under temporary use permits, under 5AI, it starts out with the following provisions shall apply specifically to sand pits utilized for fracking and oil production. Number 1, bond fee is $2,000 per acre, and proof of such bond must be filed with the land use administrator prior to mining and forfeitable if the area is not restored to its original or better condition for a period not to exceed 5 years from the conclusion of the mining operations. Number 2, during mining operations, a maximum of 40 acres is allowed to be disturbed, not including sediment pond, prep plant location, and road for mining area to prep plant. A maximum distance of 150 feet is allowed to the face of the cut mine land. Mining and prep plant operations are to stop when sustained winds are excess of 40 miles per hour and gusts up to 58 miles per hour. Number 3, reclamation is to follow a mining operation to maintain no less than 40% of reclaimed land before extending pit to new area. Reclamation is to include but not limited to the following. A, all rocks that would interfere with proper tillage and seeding must be picked. B, all trees and limbs disturbed by mining shall be cleared and removed. C, all areas should be seeded with guidelines from Soil Conservation Office. D, all areas shall have compost such as straw as cover crimped into soil. E, slopes shall be no less than 4-to-1 ratio where mine land ties back into virgin ground. F, riprap material such as rock needs to be in watershed areas disturbed by mining. G, topographical maps and mining plan must be presented with the application. Number 2, MSDS sheets for all chemicals used in the plant processing shall be filed with land use administrator prior to use. 3, existing wells within a 1 mile radius must be tested by a third party at the applicant's expense. Reports relating thereto must be filed with the land use administrator and the applicable state agency. All wells will be tested for quality and quantity. Number 4, weeds shall be controlled during mining operations and shall be a condition of bond release. Number 5, all garbage and refuse shall be stored in a dumpster and removed by a licensed hauler to Mercer County landfill. Number 6, site is subject to inspection at any time by land use administrator. Number 7, air quality, report quality samples taken as required to the state health department to be filed with the land use administrator. Number 8, the applicant shall obtain all applicable approval for access to the permitted area, including but not limited to a haul road access agreement with the Mercer County Highway Superintendent. Such agreement shall include dust suppressant for a mining and pit area, as well as all roads leading to and within the permitted area. Number 9, photos of the current condition of the property must be filed with the land use administrator. Under 10, water. A, when water table will be disturbed during mining, ground monitoring wells must be in place before mining operation begins, with reports by a third party at applicant's expense filed with land use administrator and the applicable state agency. B, all water used in production shall be metered and submitted quarterly report filed with land use administrator. C, all watershed is to be contained in active mining area within pond capacity to contain 100-year flood. D, water is permitted to flow naturally to permit area that is not currently being mined. E, water and processing plant shall be contained in clay line pit containing no less than 3 feet of clay, along with a liner or substitute with concrete only pit. F, this application shall meet the requirements of Mercer County Water Board. 11, no living quarters shall be constructed on site. 1 recreational vehicle is permitted for temporary employee quarters. Any sanitation related thereto will be disposed of by a licensed hauler. Number 12, applicable frac sand operations located within 1 mile radius of occupied dwelling. A, processing plant location must be located outside a half-mile radius of existing occupied dwelling. B, mining operation must not be within a 1/4 mile of existing occupied dwelling. Number 13, air monitor location shall be located between each occupied dwelling and processing plant, and readings must be obtained 3 times daily. Example, 10 a.m., 1 p.m., and 4 p.m. All readings must be submitted to the land use administrator weekly. Number 14, no engine braking allowed. Signs shall be posted on road when truck traffic is within vicinity of the occupied dwelling.
Okay, I think at this time we open the meeting to public hearing.
I just wanted to point out, as you guys recall from the last meeting, some of these are my suggestions, were not formally adopted yet, but we incorporated them into the new draft. So that's 15 and 16 had to be struck, and 8 reworded. So just to remind you guys of that, those had not yet been formally adopted by anybody.
Why are we taking 16 out? What was the reason for that?
Because standard routine costs related to application, all this stuff is covered already. In the event we get into some sort of litigation, we could seek damages, which isn't necessarily costs, and so that would be covered in any potential litigation over it.
And that 13, didn't we want, instead of times, I know you got as examples, but when system is running or when process is running?
That's up to you guys if you want to change it. Yeah, I had just pointed out that we gave that as example times, but
Right.
we're not gonna, specify which exact times, but if you'd like to change that in some way, you certainly can.
Well, I think it should be when the process is, or when they're mining or when the process is running. Cause you got, well, if you take 3 times a day and it runs all night, there won't be any samples taken at night.
You could say 3 times in a 24-hour period, if that's what you're asking.
Well, I think, to me, the reading should be obtained 3 times a day, but when the system is in service. It don't do much good to take an air quality reading if it's not running.
You'd see the difference between the two.
Well, yeah,
And I'm not trying to be a smartass here or anything, but you'd see the difference between the two, and then the other thing is, who's gonna monitor when they're running and not running?
well, that should be easy to obtain if they're running or not running. Isn't there a log or something on?
It's not in here. Are there any other questions, before we open it up to, by the commissioners, before we open it up to the gallery? Anybody from the,
Hang on a minute.
go ahead.
This 40 mile per hour and gusts up to 58,
What number are you on there, Dwight?
number 2,
First page.
first page.
Okay.
So if the wind's blowing 40 miles an hour, who's gonna be seeing if it gusts up to 58? If they want 40 miles an hour in there, they should just stop when winds are in excess of 40 miles per hour, period. Who's gonna be, you can have a 40 mile an hour with no gusts. So which, to me, it's a double standard. You want operation to stop at 40 mile an hour winds and gusts up to 58.
Well, the way I read it, you have to stop if the wind is at in excess of 40 miles per hour, and let's just say that the wind is 35, but they get gusts to 58, then they have to stop also.
Just change and to or.
How do you want, what's your thoughts on that, Dwight?
Well, that would be sufficient, to change and to or.
Okay, anybody from the gallery that would like to make some comments, please come forward to the microphone and identify yourselves. You gotta put that mic pretty close, otherwise,
I'm Stacy Hartman, and I have a question on this wind stuff too. Is it gonna be monitored when they're not operating and the wind is blowing 40 miles an hour? Are they gonna operate, are they gonna be out there testing the wind through the evenings, through the day period, whatever, if it's over 40, because the sand still blows? So I was wondering, are they gonna do the air quality then too?
I can't answer your question, maybe somebody else can. I don't see anything in there saying who's monitoring this. I'm assuming that the company is, but as the county, who's policing it, I don't see anything on that, so I can't answer that.
My other question is, this 1 mile radius for testing the wells. I have a well that is producing water to my house. I am not on Southwest Water, and if, my well would go dry, are they digging a new well for me? Is that what my understanding is?
First of all, is your well certified?
Yes,
It is,
yes, we just had it
Because-
tested
okay,
last year.
okay. Because I had a situation with myself and if the well isn't certified, well, I'm out of luck, so just, yeah, okay.
But you're outside the mile. Cindy, Stacy?
Well, the
Or
way
would
me
you
and
be
my husband,
within the mile?
the way me and my husband walked it off and drove, I guess, we were like right in the mile. Because from my land, I'm taking it, it's from my dwelling, not my land, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, then we're in that mile radius. I could be wrong, but this is just what we drove and where we looked on the proclamation.
Well, to answer your question, I guess that would be up to the company to decide whether they wanted to, how they wanted to replace the water, whether it would be Southwest Water or a well or however. But make sure your well is certified as to quality and quantity, because if you don't have that,
Right.
Okay.
the bad thing about this stuff is you gotta prove that they messed up your well, not vice versa.
Okay, I will have that done.
To answer your question, we'll be monitoring it, but that would be an issue between you guys as landowners, potentially legally. So these reports could be helpful in anything, but we wouldn't be directly involved in any litigation thereafter.
Okay,
Okay?
that's all I had, thank you.
Come up. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dave Sebastian. I'm just gonna address Stacy's concerns. The mining is gonna be literally 1.5 miles to 2 miles from her property. No mining is gonna be happening from the processing plant to her place. That's 0.5 mile. And before we even get near 1 mile to her place, we're talking years before that ever happens. It's not like we're dropping in, digging sand in between by her house. Again, the plant is 0.5 mile from her house. The mining is 1 mile behind that plant. So if you guys all put that in perspective and all these concerns, and I understand what she's saying, we're not going in and digging a hole like, and not gonna downsize Dakota Propane, but they're going in and digging down deep into the water. We don't plan to go into the water table at all. That's our plan. Looking at the land, and if you know the land, how it lies out, it's impossible for a water vein to be within those sand dunes. Because they're dunes, they're not hills. They don't hold no water. So that's it. I'll have more to say, but on her concerns, the mining area is gonna be 1.5 miles south of her.
You can go ahead with your comments.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to remind everybody too, that we're not looking specifically right now at Asgard. Again, remember, this is the general guidelines here. So just to keep everybody mindful of that.
And Mr. Chairman, for further clarification, that's for future applications,
Any applications at all, right?
not what we've already approved.
Right.
It's not retroactive to that.
No, no.
Go ahead, sir.
I'm David Lundstrom. First thing, I'd like to just react to something that Dave said. Actually, the property that has been leased for mining is within 0.5 mile of Stacy's land. So it certainly is subject to mining, whatever that timetable turns out to be. It isn't going to be 1.5 miles from her property. That's the first thing. Looking through this whole document that we were given, back on page 11, as far as land use, as far as temporary use permits go, back on page 11, section K, commercial motor vehicle parking lot temporary use permit. There's, included with this is a background check, applicant background information. And it's very complete, and it's very well thought out, and I don't know if temporary parking lot operators are inherently suspicious or untrustworthy, why they're singled out here. It seems to me that this should apply to every applicant for a temporary use permit, no matter what their temporary use is supposed to be. I don't know why parking lots were particularly listed, but certainly all the things that are required in this listing make really good sense. And we should know the background of all applicants applying for a temporary use permit. And I think this would be, would make just as much sense included for them all, including the sand mining ones. And I don't know what, maybe Jessica has got some thoughts on whether that would be possible or not, or whether this can be generally applied, or is there
Well-
some reason why it can't?
I gave some a historical look at the temporary use chapter. The crew housing and the commercial vehicle came about during the oil boom era. They weren't in there when I came into office 10 years ago. That was probably 5, 6 years ago maybe. And these were drafted based on other counties that had come up with them, so that's where those came into play. That was a concern, I think, at that point, because there was so many people coming and whatnot. So certainly, it's applicable in those. There isn't any reason it couldn't be here. But that was where those stemmed from.
Sure.
Was the oil boom days.
So there'd be nothing to prevent us from including it as a general requirement for, so that's my suggestion, that be included too, just as a further safeguard, finding out who's proposing whatever it is their operation is, especially something as extensive and disruptive as sand mining and all the changes that it can possibly bring. So that's my observation there.
Well, that probably isn't a bad idea, especially, being there's trucks concerned, they will have to be parked somewhere.
Well, it's actually part of this ordinance, right?
Not part of our track sign.
That's
Well,
under-
it's part of the ordinance period, but I guess it's in the ordinance, so it should be followed. But it doesn't say
But
commercial.
that's under crew
It's
camps.
specific to those two, right?
Specific, you say that again?
It's specific to the crew housing and the commercial vehicle parking lots only.
Yes.
It's not part of the ordinance, so to speak, as far as a general requirement. It's only specific to those.
So if we wanted it in the frac sand ordinance. it'd
You'd have to incorporate it. As you look at the other temporary uses under there, A is sand and gravel, but then you go next to B through H. Those are just generically listed, really. Wildcat has its own specifics. So, I mean, there are other temporary uses, some that don't even have any specific requirements at all. So the background application, or background information is more the exception than the norm. Gravel pits, we don't have them either. Outdoor concerts, yeah.
And again, I think that it may not be a bad idea. I mean, not so concerned what they do on their world, but when they come off of their world onto our, our local highway and state highway, it gets to be a little bit of a concern, because they may run pretty long shifts, and we're broke down, and now it's just a safety issue, I would think. And it could be part of doing business.
Any more comments from the public? Go ahead, Dave. Come up to the mic, please.
Have you guys seen the proposed setup where the mine and Asgard plant is gonna be set and the road?
The answer is no.
To the last proposal, I guess, John, they did that offset. Did you guys each get the offsets from where Stacy's home is and Dave's and?
The answer to,
Part of the application that came in, that map showed where the mining was gonna be happening.
is that the
Well-
original application,
I'm
Cindy?
not sure.
That was the original application that was denied. But they don't have that information here because we weren't talking about that specific
Right,
application.
answer.
And at the last one, if I recall, you guys were debating if you're gonna have to change something in between too. So I don't think we've seen anything from
No,
I'll pull
way
it
back.
up here and I'll see if I can get it to you, so you can at least take a look at it.
Well, and that'll come into play obviously when we're back at that specific one, but not necessarily for the general, right? Yeah, okay,
no, that's for that application, not for the ordinance.
right.
Okay,
I have a question.
go ahead, Dwight.
On this, this 24-hour deal, I can't believe that that's not gonna be an issue to people that live in the neighborhood. But it's also been brought to my attention that when crop is ready, farmers are going around the clock, and they're probably keeping some people awake too. Could we put in here that to allow 24-hour, you can go 24 hours a day when you're actually fracking a mine? The rest of the time it'd be strictly daylight hours?
The problem with that is gonna become enforcement. Now you're talking about potential oil activity out there as well, right? This is all gonna relate back to,
Well, yeah, whenever they get a frack job, they gotta go 24/7 to supply the sand, but the rest of the time, they don't have to be going 24/7.
yeah, I just think that it's gonna become problematic from an enforcement standpoint. Because now you're gonna have Cindy having to figure, I just see that, I mean, you can put it in there, but from a practical standpoint, I don't think that's feasible to be able to enforce.
It'd be so hard to track. It
Yeah.
would be almost, it'd be.
Well, I guess the other alternative is daylight hours only.
Well, that's up to you, whatever we decide here today, right?
Our gravel pits are daylight hours only.
Okay, we're going to close the public meeting now and go back to the commission meeting. Commissioners, I guess I'm looking for a motion to accept or revise for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, would that include some of the things we talked about earlier, like, you know,
Depends what your motion is.
Dwight said, putting ore in there, or those different little things, or are we looking at just what we got here?
No, depends what your motion is. Now, you can, the motion be to add, and then whatever comments you want to add, and where you want them. Or to, and then from there, we would revise if those passed. We can make any changes we want at this time, and we shouldn't feel shy. This is the time to do it. But we need it in the form of a motion.
I guess I would like to hear, oh, you want the motion first and then discussion?
Yeah, we've discussed it already, so. If you wanna talk about it first, I don't care how you wanna do it, Dwight.
Well, I guess I'd like to approach Asgard on that. On the, for the mine, as far as when you're doing a frack job, you go around the clock to supply sand, the rest of the time it could be just daylight hours only if you ain't got a frack job.
I would say that.
Come up to the speaker, please, if you're gonna respond.
John Ison with Asgard. So I would say to that, to start and stop that plant, you know, every 12 hours or when we just have a frac going is gonna be really costly. So I would definitely not be in favor.
Why would it be costly to start and stop that plant? What are you gonna do when your tanks are full?
Well, we could possibly shut down the dry plant when we didn't have a frac. But once you get that wet plant going, it's way more cost effective to just keep it going.
Well, where do you put that sand if you're not selling?
You stockpile the wet sand in a whip drain, so you can, all the water drains out of it.
Well, you'd be doing that anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
So we wouldn't want to shut that down,
And how
just because we
big,
don't have a frac.
how big
We
is
wanna-
that facility?
The wet plant?
Yeah, well, where you're gonna store that wet sand to drain down, I mean, when's it gonna be full? And if you're not fracking, you're not gonna be taking anything out of there, so,
That pile just sits out in the air. It sits on a tile drain, and as big as your stacker is, you just wanna keep that thing going.
well, I just got a hard time with them backup horns, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You're gonna hear them. And I was hoping for some concessions on this, because I know it's a concern, but at the same time, you're telling me it's impossible to shut the system down.
No, it's not impossible, it's just not cost effective to have to start and stop and start and stop. The dry plant, yeah, if we don't have
Well,
a
the wet
frac.
plant is where you're gonna be using the equipment, the loaders or dozers or whatever you're using to bring in the sand. That's where these backup alarms are gonna be going off.
Yeah, and there'll be a loader at the dry plant too, so if we don't have a frac going, we'll just shut it down.
Well, Mr. Chairman, it's no different than at my yard. I hear the backup alarms running and the dozer clacking, and it's called coal mining, and that's the way life is. And I don't enjoy it, but I live where I live, and the mine's at where the mine is, and that's part of OSHA's standard, and that's what you gotta do, you know? So,
John,
Yeah, go ahead.
simple question. Please spell me your last name.
Oh, ISOM.
I-S what?
OM.
Okay, John Isom?
Yep, that's right.
Thank you. Well, I put a lot more letters in it than that. Okay, that's very shut and dry. I just wanted to know who was talking today. Thank you. Okay, do we have any motion to amend or accept?
just hang on, Mr. Chairman. So, John, basically, you're looking at more or less a 24-hour operation as to a daylight operation.
Yeah, that's
in-
correct.
In order to keep the financial part and to keep equipment running, or the system going, in other words.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we hire guys and then to run the wet plant, and all of a sudden, we don't have a job and you guys want us to shut down, then those night guys, we just have to tell them, you're not coming into work. And then how long, they're not gonna hang around very long if they're, don't know when they're gonna come in that morning or that night and say, well, we're shutting down, so go home. It'll just make it difficult.
I understand that. I'm assuming that after you get so much stockpiled, let's just say that we run into another oil crunch like we did this year,
Right.
that sooner or later you have to shut down because you got too much stockpiled, right?
Yeah, exactly, like our mine that you guys came and visited in McHenry County, we have a giant stockpile there. This all happened, we continued to build inventory till our pile was big, and then we just shut her down.
Would that be a 3-month stockpile, or what's your, just a shoot from the hip idea?
So, I don't know if you guys saw that, remember that big stacker that we had out
I
there?
wasn't there. Go ahead and tell
Conveyor
me.
belt, anyway, it's probably a 2 or 3 month stockpile.
Okay.
Underneath that, our particular belt, but I mean, that can vary from.
Sure. Okay.
I have a question that I'm just trying to remember here on stuff, but for when you deliver your sand, you just deliver to the job site, the well site at where you're gonna be doing the fracking, or do you haul it like to Kilder or someplace like that and dump sand, or is it just would it be from here to the job site that you got? And that's how that works, right?
Yeah, right to the job site. That's the idea with localized sand, is you limit the number of times you have to touch the sand and handle it, because that all adds cost, so. Right out of those silos, and then just goes right to the blender on the frac job.
Do the commissioners have any more questions for John? Any more questions for John? Thank you, John.
You bet.
Can we get a motion to suggest amendment or accept as written? This is the final reading, right? We're done. So today we need to move forward on it.
If you want, I mean,
Yeah, we want. I want.
okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir?
what kind of recommendation can we get from council on this now? You're comfortable with what's in here now?
Right, my proposed changes are as drafted. And so some of the other issues are left for you guys to decide. But the ones that gave me concern legally, I struck, and then we reworded the access and suppressant one.
Okay, so your recommendation would be, this
As
is
presented.
reads okay as is here
As
now?
presented, yep.
You guys need more time? This is the time to take it, so.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion to amend the ordinance as written.
What is your amendment?
Number 2, change and to or.
Is that the only one you got, Dwight?
Pardon?
Is that the only one you have?
No.
Okay,
That's 5-A2.
5AI2.
And I would like to add, include commercial motor vehicle parking lot temporary use permit. 17, or you can use it for 15, since 15 and 16 are,
Okay, but it wasn't the commercial motor vehicle parking lot permit, wasn't it the applicant background information?
it's in the book. Not sure, it's under K.
K8. K8.
He said to add this, but wasn't it this that they wanted, that they talked about adding? The applicant background information? You don't want to add the commercial motor vehicle parking lot.
Oh, yeah, you don't wanna add the whole thing.
There it is. There.
No.
I would say it's II, right? II 1 through 9.
Well, if you, the first paragraph, if you would adopt that, it would include,
No, it would be K2 that you're looking at, correct?
And I think, are you thinking to add the sand mining into the definitions of the one?
I'm saying that we should adopt K into the sand mine ordinance, or reference K for the sand mine ordinance.
Well, but that,
All of K?
it wouldn't make any sense, cause it talks, like, 3 is about parking spaces, numbering system. I mean, there's a whole thing specific to commercial vehicle. If you're talking specifically about applicant background, that would be K2,
K2, yeah.
KII.
KII2.
Yep.
No, just
KII.
KII is
K?
applicant background information,
You understand what she's saying right there?
And then it's 1 through 9.
1 through 9.
You agree with that, Dwight?
Yeah, that'd be okay, 1 through 9.
So it's
KII.
It's 5KII, numbers 1 through 9.
1 through 9, yeah,
Is that correct?
that's correct.
And 13, that, on number 13, I think that should be changed to whenever the process is in service for the air quality readings.
Or in operations.
3 times daily when the process is
In operation.
in operation.
The only problem with that is then you'll never have a static reading.
Well, we should have them. We should have static readings before they ever start.
Unless you would want to put that in there, we
Well,
need
we can have a static reading
one
to start
static
with.
reading, so we have a baseline to run off of, right?
Do you want to put all 3 of these in your motion at once as one motion, or do you want, how do you
I
want
made
to?
a motion to amend the
I can-
ordinance.
It's all
I
one.
got it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, yeah, I don't
the
mean.
reason I'm asking you that, Dwight, I can agree, I'll just use an example. I can agree to items 1 and 2. Number 3, I'll vote no. So you're gonna, in my, that's, when you put everything in one motion, you can lose all of it.
For 13, the error, I mean, the point of contention just a minute ago was that it's gonna be a 24-hour operation. So, I don't know.
But it don't necessarily say it only runs for half the 24-hour period. You shouldn't need air quality readings if the system isn't running. So it should be just when it's running. I mean, when it isn't running, it should be a static reading. Well, if we get one static reading at the beginning, why would we need one every day?
When this mining pit opens up, it could change from that initial static reading. Plus an enforcement issue, again, I don't know, but, I mean, you can,
Well, that goes right back to the beginning of this, when it was talked about the county's expenses enforcing these ordinances are gonna increase, but we're not getting anything for that.
okay, back to that issue. It's part of the administrative duties of the county to be overseeing and doing these things, okay?
Right.
That's already included.
Yeah.
The potential enforcement issues I'm talking about aren't cost-related, it's practical enforcement and being able to follow that. Cindy has a lot of things she does, and sitting out at this mine and checking when it's open and running, and if there air is going, it's just not feasible, so I'm just trying to be practical here.
Well,
That-
then why take them at all, if we can't enforce it?
Well, we can, it'll depend on what it is. If you'll recall from the last meeting, and overall in your experience as planning and zoning, our number one issue always is to try to bring things into compliance. Then we go from there into a lot of different options about potential enforcement, which can ultimately lead to litigation, but may or may not. And this can go back to Stacy's concern related to the wells, as it could related to the air, that if we're keeping these readings, and a neighbor, this becomes a property owner versus property owner issue, we would have the information there for anybody to access if something is pursued later. So that isn't just enforcement on our side. Potentially, this information could be helpful to the local landowners. But from a practical standpoint, when you're talking about going out there during operations and whatnot, I'm just simply telling you, you can put it in here, but I don't think it's feasible and gonna work that way. I think it's better to have the general standards here that everybody can operate in, because Cindy's just not gonna be out there at 2 o'clock in the morning to see that it's running.
And once again, if there, we have a failure in our ordinance here, we can always revise and change, you know, when we see this, something's not working, let's get it into where it's gonna make sense and does work. So, I mean, it's not that this is etched in stone and we can't do nothing with it either.
Dwight, I agree with Jessica, what she was saying there. if there's a complaint, we have an ordinance, and the landowners, the neighbors can call up, and Cindy might be able to go out there at that time and check it out. Full-time enforcement, we'd have to hire another person, and, so that's why, logistically speaking, handling it, it'd be an enforcement nightmare. We don't have the
So do you
staff
want-
to do that.
Is that in the motion then, Dwight, or do we just wanna stick with number 2 and or and include,
Just do number 2.
and then the 5K II 1 through 9?
No, just number 2, one at a time, I guess.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to amend
Ordinance.
ordinance 5AI2, change and to or. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Did I read that correctly, Shannon?
5A I2, yes.
Okay, there'll be no further discussion. We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Dwight, how do you vote?
Aye.
Merlin?
Aye.
Wayne?
How would I?
Dwayne?
Aye.
I vote aye, motion passed. Next motion. That's where you wanted to change 5KII numbers 1 through 9, you wanted to add that.
Yes, I'll make a motion to include 5KII in the ordinance.
Numbers 1 through 9, I'm asking,
1 through 9.
Yeah.
be very specific. Okay, we have a motion, I'll let Shanna read it back to us, please.
To amend ordinance 5074 to include 5K II 1 through 9.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion?
Get a second.
Oh, I do need a second.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Wayne.
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Dwight, how do you, I'm sorry.
Just checking real quick, this would be under number 15 then? Is that how it would be? Or where are you adding this?
5,
Oh, right, if potentially, yeah, if they strike 15 and 16, that would become, yeah.
It's not under one
Oh,
of these
right,
other
so-
sections, it'll be a new one.
It'll be a new number,
itself.
yeah,
I figured that as one there.
yep.
Dwight, how do you vote?
Aye.
Wayne?
Would I?
Dwayne?
Aye.
Merlin?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion passed. Are there any further amendments? Any further amendments? Okay, if there be no further amendments, we need a motion to accept ordinances as revised.
As presented and revised, because mine presented had those changes that you had, yeah.
Presented and
Amended.
revised.
Yeah.
And I'll have Shanna read it back and make sure we get those 2 words in there.
I'll make a motion to accept the ordinance as presented and revised.
Good job. Do we have a second?
Second that, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second. And Shanna, will you please read it, the motion?
To approve ordinance 5074 is presented and revised.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Dwayne?
Aye.
Wayne?
I vote aye.
Merlin?
Aye.
Dwight?
I gotta vote no.
I vote aye.
Mr. Chairman, Planning and Zoning had recommended that you lift the moratorium on sand mining applications if this went through. So I don't know if you wanna,
We have to have a motion to that effect. Does that fall under a present agenda?
Yeah, it's related, because I thought it, remind me of what that motion was, because I thought it was a moratorium until an ordinance is approved, but not to exceed 6 months.
Was this in
So-
February?
Oh, maybe it was.
So
Do you remember when that motion was made? February?
Say that again, Jessica?
it's my recollection, the moratorium was until finalization of the ordinance, which you just did, but not to exceed 6 months. So I believe
That's
with,
correct, and this takes care of it.
with your approval, moratorium is now over. I just want to double check our.
Okay,
The motion
but-
just stated, sand mining moratorium for up to 6 months. And, I mean, and then we had something written, obviously, I don't have it in my notes, but.
Well, it was in the minutes of the planning and zoning meeting, I believe.
Well,
is
I
where
mean,
the
certainly you
minutes were.
can go ahead now and make a motion.
I think we'll cover our
officially
tracks.
lifting the moratorium.
right.
I mean,
Cover
that
it.
would, that was the intention, I don't know the wording, but that would make it clean if you just do a motion to lift the moratorium.
Do we have a motion to lift the moratorium on frac mining,
Sand mining
frac
application.
sand mining applications?
Mr. Chairman, so moved.
Do we have a second? Do we have a second?
Second that, Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion? Shannon, read the motion back to us, please.
To lift the moratorium on frac sand mining applications.
Is there any more discussion? Merlin, how do you vote?
Aye.
Wayne?
I'll vote aye.
Dwayne?
Aye.
Dwight?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion passed. 10 o'clock, road issues. We want to take a break?
Yeah.
I have to, but I don't know.
Is this just the last, what is this?
What time do we have for a break? Go ahead, go.
10:45.
This specific one?
I think we can do road issues. Yeah, we're gonna continue. You guys are okay, or do you need a break, Dwight?
We'll make it.
I was gonna take it when it was available, but I'll make it.
Okay, road issues, go ahead, please.
Outstanding road accounts, according to what we have, there is none. Is that what you have, Shannon?
Yep.
Just wanted to discuss about road conditions, / dry weather. With this, well, except for last night, but it was pretty spotty too across the county with the dry conditions. The roads are not holding up because they need moisture with that binder in there to hold that together. So we're having quite a few washboards within, depends on how much traffic, within a week, if that. And then you have people calling saying that our road is washboardy again. Well, we haven't even gotten to a lot of them across the county yet, besides coming back to that one. So people are just gonna have to be patient with the type of weather conditions we're having, so. 'Cause when you see all the dust going down the road, that's all the binder that's holding the gravel together, or supposed to be if it would have the moisture in it.
It does help if they don't tear the road pan loose too. I mean, they can blade and feather. There's a difference between blading and tearing the bottom of the road pan up, and then you got a lot of loose product, and there's no rain, so there is no binding, gonna happen. But if they can, if they want, they can feather it too, just to get her put together, Only have to cut a little ways. There is a difference between operators. I can see that now. Thanks for what you did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Every time this comes up, these different subjects, the guy learns more. I'm not a road person, so. Is there anything else you want to add there? Ken?
No, not under that anyway. Egg permits, I just wanna kinda bring, this is for our typical roads are 80,000 pounds or 7 ton per axle. And I don't know, Jessica, you might, it's probably how many years, that was kind of during the oil boom when we had this ag permit thing, because we had to cover all bases with the oil field and with our
That's
ag
when we
permits.
adopted the permit schedule, right?
Right,
Yeah.
yep, the whole
Yep.
permit schedule, and that's what during frost laws, most roads are at that 65,000 or 6 ton per axle. Once frost laws are off, then they go back to that 80,000 pound, 7 ton per axle. So the plant roads are at that 105.5 and 8 ton per axle. If you're over that, then you have to get a permit, a single trip permit in, and if you come out that way, you're getting another permit to come out. What the purpose of the ag permit was they could go up to the 90,000 pounds. And back in 2015, we had 15, 16, we had 18, and there's a difference. There's an ag permit, that's $100 per year, calendar year, and a commercial, which is $500. But if we go through like 2017, we had 9. 2018, we had 12.
You talking ag permits now?
Yes, in 19, we had 13 total, we had 12 and 1 commercial, and so far in 2020, we have 2 permits taken out.
Are there that many less farmers?
No, why get an ag permit if there's no enforcement?
And
That's what it boils down to.
I guess what I'm getting at with this is if we could get, like when we had Ron McLeod here with the weights during the frost, I mean, that was just 2 weeks, and I don't know, do you know, Shannon, it was like $38,000 he made just in overloads.
This week, this year?
No, last year when he was
Yeah,
here.
last year was quite a bit. This year he
Yeah,
did.
he wasn't out this year. He started, and then that COVID thing came out, and that didn't, so, I mean, it's just something to think about as far as enforcement. If we could hire an individual, if we could share it with the sheriff's department, because it does help our roads. Because here's what happens, whenever people are overloaded, they wreck the roads, and who has to fix it? We do, but it's at the expense of every taxpayer in this county too. So we're protecting what we have.
What was the number of ag permits in 17? You gave me that, and I couldn't write quick enough.
17 was 9.
9, and in 20, we had 2?
Correct, that's what we have so far, yep.
And they're $500 a pop?
Nope,
No.
that's a commercial.
That's the commercial.
A regular egg is 100.
That's to 90,000.
Right.
And what's the fee if they're over that? If they're overweight?
Well, then they have to do, then it goes to according to our permit schedule.
Okay, never mind
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
I got that. Okay,
But I just want to bring that up because it's getting close to budget time, and I think it's something that we have to think about, because I really do think a good enforcement program
What are we signing?
will work.
is this lifting the moratorium?
The ordinance 5074
Okay,
that you just passed.
okay.
There's nothing on the sheet, that's why I
No,
was asking.
Cindy had the signature page prepared and we'll finalize it to include it in the manual.
Anything else, Ken?
And the other thing I got is we always typically, well, after that June 15th, when the state is when we do our blacktop, we're gonna wait until after the 4th to start mowing ditches. We'll start mowing the blacktop. We always do blacktop because of the dry conditions, so hopefully they can try to get that hay off. But we're gonna start after the 4th. Because it's not that, I mean,
Yeah.
there's some areas that are high, but, I mean, not really high, but most of it's like this, so it's not terrible for visibility so far. But I'm thinking by that July, if we keep on, getting these little showers, by then we should be just perfect with
And
mowing.
I have to support definitely what Ken's saying. The shoulder line in the road is not nearly like it was last year. And so that gives a few of us time to get out there and get it knocked off, and it's not really a hazard at all, so.
Didn't you have an ad in the paper on it regarding
Yeah,
this?
a couple weeks ago already, because technically we could start June 15th is when we go, but we're gonna wait. So, but it's been posted in our Beulah Beacon, in the county newspaper. Okay. Other than that, that's all I have.
Let's talk a little bit about that Challenger. I stopped and looked at that the other day.
Is that in Bismarck, or is that?
Hazen.
Oh,
That's gonna be around 20,000 the way it sounds.
Yeah.
Are we gonna have a good tractor when it's done?
Well, it's got less than, motor's got less than 5,000 hours on it, but, I mean, do we fix it, or do we, because we can't,
Well, it ain't no good the way it is.
right?
And
We
And
got-
that's the one that's got the front PTO for the snow
snow
blower too.
blower, yeah.
It'll be a nickel and dimer.
Well, it's still many dollars less than a new one,
Right.
unfortunately, but it's gonna be a huge cost, I guess.
What was the cause of this?
What was the cause? The way, who works, Mike, I think.
Mike?
Yeah, he had explained that, like a typical, the rear end in like a New Holland or whatever, it's set up different than in a Challenger. So instead of having one planetary deal there, the Challenger has actually two of them. So, and he had said too, what could have caused it is the slopes, on the end slopes when the tractor's doing the mowing over time. I mean, that tractor's, I don't know, it was probably 11, I think we had got that one. So that doesn't help it, but, I mean, there's less than 5,000 hours, it shouldn't have done it, but we know how all mechanical stuff is. A lot of stuff shouldn't have done it, but it does, so I guess we're left with, the parts are here, do we fix it, or do we, I mean, it's worth nothing if we don't fix it.
Yeah.
I mean, even on a trade-in, but like I was saying at the last one, is that at least we have the parts, we have that John Deere, that lease tractor, we can put 250 hours on that, we have
Right.
our case. So we
Right.
still have our two tractors out, and we have those offsets that we can mow with, but, I mean, sooner or later, that 250 hours is gonna come up on that John Deere. And then you pay so much more after that per hour, so. So I was
Well-
kinda hoping we could buy a little time to,
Have you got money in your budget for this repair?
we would, but I wanna push it off, cause we don't know what's coming up further down the road, if we have something that's more of a,
But I
a
mean,
need.
this tractor, you have money for the repair bill for the tractor, is that what you're talking about?
I would at this time, yes.
Yeah.
But further down the road here, cause we're getting, I mean, it's almost July, but we still got July, August, September, October, November, part of December,
So the parts are here,
yes,
and we're ready to repair if we give you the okay?
right?
Okay, we need a motion to,
Did we already give him an okay yet?
I thought we did,
Well,
but we did, was it subject to
No, I
a
don't-
limit?
No.
I don't think we,
No, because we had to order those back to castings and.
right,
And either order it now while it's in the States, or else order it overseas.
right. Cause they only had two in country, and the others have to come from
I
us.
thought that implied that we were gonna order them and install them.
Mr. Chairman, I think, Ken, I think you kind of have a little reluctance, probably kind of sensing on this, about spending the money for it now, in case.
Well, that's what I'm up against, yes, I mean, do I,
Parts you have to pay for 'em?
Right.
Yeah. Well,
but if I do that, and then something else comes up, am I gonna go over budget on my line item for,
Can you get by
Repairs.
without the tractor to the end of the year?
no.
I don't think so. It's
Okay,
gonna be
then we got-
close.
Then we got
Okay.
answers, we gotta fix it.
Get her done.
So we need a motion to proceed with repairs.
Were the
That-
parts more than $6,000?
Yeah, well,
Because if the
three,
motion says Miller proposed to purchase two
Three and
axle
three.
housings needed to fix the Challenger tractor in the amount of $6,000 for parts, but did not include the labor. Berger moved to proceed with Ken's recommendation, Dahl second, all voted aye, motion carried.
So that was to buy the parts.
But it didn't include the labor.
No labor.
But you guys were fine with just the purchase amount of
Purchase
6,000
the
for the
parts.
part, but not knowing the labor.
Do you need a separate motion now for repairing, or it can be just
I would
included
think
with this
so,
deal?
if the parts were $6,000 like you estimated or got the estimate for.
I want a motion to proceed with the repairs.
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second to proceed with repairs?
second that.
Any further discussion?
Well, this is a catch-22, but
Right.
it's one of those situations, I mean, the tractor sits there and does no good. And a new rig, I don't think you're gonna pick up for under $110,000 or $20,000, so it's one of those farm-type deals. You gotta repair it, you gotta take care of it, and hopefully it keeps running, but the hour-wise, that thing is kinda so broke in,
Right.
so.
You use this on a snow blower, right?
Yes,
No,
yeah,
and-
and that case has that front PTO too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But the funny part about that is, it's the side that's the worst is the one that
Right.
It's
yeah.
up on top.
is on top,
Yeah.
not the one that's taking all the load on the
On the inslope.
ditch side.
And-
That's the funny thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, put it in
And-
front.
And again, I mean, Ken has gotten these offsets, so you probably will be running that offset a lot more on that particular unit just to,
They will be all the time.
Yeah. yeah.
Then we don't have to put them in the ditch, because that was the main for safety, because you go into that inslope, if there's a culvert or a washout, might not be a good thing.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to proceed with repairs. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Dwight, how do you vote?
Aye.
Wayne?
I,
Merlin?
Aye.
Dwayne?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion passed. Thanks, Ken. Peggy?
keep her on.
If you run out of money, don't come back, you know.
Yeah.
Lots of ruck. Hi, Peggy.
Okay, I was called by several people on several lost cemeteries. One was Dorothy Simonson, and she called, and if you know Dorothy, she said, "You girls, you get out here. I'm getting old, and I'm getting tired of taking people and show them where the Wittenberg Cemetery is." And it's unfenced, and the tombstones were taken off and piled up in a rock pile. And it was on Byron Mann's property. There was also a church there, and Byron, before he passed away, he was gonna look in his abstracts, and he didn't. But anyway, we went out there, and it is a 60 by 60 cemetery. Leland Shire his parents lived right across the fence from there, the section line. And he remembers as a child running over there and playing on the rock pile, and there was tombstones in the rock pile. And it is the Wittenberg Cemetery, and Wes Gunch said that he does have an aunt buried there. Like I said, it's unfenced. So Dorothy would like, she's requesting help to get a sign put up there. I did get some volunteer help to make a large cross for there, and also another cemetery that same thing happened to. But we have the cross made, all volunteer, and Richard Simonson is painting them. But we would like a sign there so people can find it when they come, look for their family or where they're buried. And also, the same thing happened with the Baker Cemetery, and that land description is section 10-143-90, the northeast corner. It's about 60 yards by 60 yards also. And that is right where Southwest Water had flagged to go through, and Darlene Brecht called me and said, there's a cemetery there. We weren't aware of that. The boys own that property now, but we weren't aware there was a cemetery there either. There's no fence or tombstones, and one of the neighbors said that, Darlene's mom, as a girl, rode through there over to Unruth's, and she remembered reading the tombstones and such. And later that land was sold to somebody else, and they did the same thing, took down the fence and removed the tombstones and put them in a rock pile there. And so I had to go flag that cemetery off so that Southwest Water wouldn't go through there, and had quite an argument with them. Well, why isn't there a sign or something there? And I said, and I gave them documentation, from Darlene and Marvin was alive at the time, and he also signed the documentation that there is a full cemetery there, and there is. And also, and I don't know why all these cemeteries were on the section 10, but on the north west corner, Armin's sisters said there was 3 crosses there. And so we assumed there was 3 graves there. Well, I got some help a while back. About 6 people come in and helped, and we took chainsaws and drug everything out. And here you could see there was 5 rows of graves there also, and that was a Forbes cemetery, and the first person was buried there in 1911. We did some research, but there's like 5 rows of graves there also. And so we think there's like 35 or 40 graves there too. So I talked to Bob Greenshield, and he will make signs and stands for about $300 a piece, he estimated. So as a rule, the Historical Society, don't get involved in this, but friends and neighbors have asked for help with this. So that's why I'm here.
So how many signs total do you need?
3 signs,
And he wants about $300 a piece?
about $300 a piece, yes. Mr. Miller, I talked to him, he said there is a little money available for lost or abandoned cemeteries.
What's our ruling on our county's obligation for these cemeteries?
Well, it has to be, yeah, it has to be formally abandoned, and I think, isn't there a state register or state list on it? So we'd have to check and see where these are designated, if they are in fact abandoned that way. Otherwise, it's supposed to revert back to the churches, if I understand. So we'll have to do some further looking, because these aren't ones on your list that she's talking about, right?
So what 3, the Wittenberg Cemetery, and what were the other 2?
Baker and Forbes.
Baker and Forbes.
Peggy,
Did
And
you
Forbes.
say you had legal descriptions of where they're at?
Yes,
Peggy, would you give me a copy of that, please, when you
Yes.
if you get a chance?
Oh, there you go. You can just run that off.
Thank you.
Well, it don't pay to put signs up until we
Can you
get
give
that.
me a copy of
Yeah.
them? I have the descriptions.
Yep.
yes.
Mr. Chairman, it
What?
doesn't pay to put signs up until they're fenced.
Yeah, we have to find out whether they've been abandoned. And then we have to go, the county has some obligations, and I'm not sure if fencing was in there. We've covered this once before.
Last year about this time, I think we had.
But I
It's
believe
just that
fencing is part
If
of
they're
it.
not abandoned, we can't donate
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, they have to
We
be
can't donate,
abandoned, but do we
But
make that
we have some
motion here
obligations
to
for
abandon them, or
other
does it
things
come
like
from?
fencing or something, whatever they are. We have to go look those rules up. So Peggy, where we're at right now, number 1, we have to check the registry to see if they're abandoned or whether they're actually still good cemeteries. If they are not abandoned, we need to check our ordinance and rules as a county for our obligations on what we can do to support. And then we'll have to get back to you.
Okay.
Is that-
And,
Is that right?
Pretty well.
it's, one is in a pasture now and one is in a field, and we were just hoping to get a sign to put along the fence, so at least people know that it's there, because there's always pipelines and everything going through. Somehow it needs to be documented.
Okay.
And we will get up the big white crosses, and that's all been volunteer work. Shannon McKay from Golden Valley made the nice big crosses, and then we hauled the crosses up to Richard Simonson, and he's painting them. So far, all it's been volunteer work, people just wanting to get this done and marked.
Okay. These are all over by the Golden Valley area, right?
One is
One
by
Zap.
Zap, like,
Okay.
it would be southwest of Zap, on the, like along the old road, yeah.
Okay, Jessica, as I understand it, number one, we have to see whether they're abandoned or where we're at on those, that's the first. If they are not abandoned, then we need to check our county rules and what our obligations are.
If it's not abandoned, then it's not our obligation.
But as much, yeah,
Okay, just abandoned ones are. But if they are, okay, then I said the other way. If they are abandoned, we'd have to check, and I think we have to fence them. I'm not real certain, because we covered this once before.
Well, because
We'll check, we have to check out what the rules are if they're abandoned.
some we have, some we haven't, I don't think, right? We do the mowing, but that doesn't mean they're all fenced. I think some
Well-
of it's determinative of where they're at and whatnot.
well,
We'll check the rulings, right?
right, if there's livestock around there, it's definitely gotta be fenced.
Yeah,
And
that was what I was
yeah.
remembering, was the one we were talking about was the cows.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
So Peggy, you're just requesting the signs, you're
Well-
not, as far as fencing, the cemetery's out?
I don't think that the landowners really wanted it fenced out, they just, people just wanted it marked.
For location.
Yeah.
Well, isn't it, well, who do you think owns the land? The landowner or the church or?
We, like on the man property, we don't know, and the one that's on what we own now, I don't believe there was ever a church there.
Okay.
We can't find any record of that at all. But it's a full cemetery.
Well, that's what my question is.
It's 60,
Yeah, 60
60
yards
yards
by
by
60
60
yards, that's
yards.
pretty good size. I mean,
yeah. The only information we have is what the old neighbors said, that on that corner of that section, that was a cemetery.
so wouldn't there be a deed or something that the landowner at that time deeded?
Well,
Or is it in the?
that quarter now belongs to Scott, and
Yeah.
I asked them for 2 months to get out their deed to see what it says, and they haven't yet.
Okay.
Or it'd be in the abstract too, maybe, right?
What?
It possibly in
The
the abstract,
abstracts, abstracts I meant, yes,
Yes,
All over the county.
yeah.
but as much as,
Lots of them.
these aren't affiliated, the churches have all dissolved that you're aware of, right? I mean, some church, or else they would have mowed them and kept them
Yeah, well,
up,
there was a
right?
schoolhouse close there, that was an old cemetery, and a lot of times they met in the
Oh, in the
schoolhouses.
schoolhouse.
Okay,
State,
we need to,
Okay,
Well, it'd probably I was just thinking about the sign, it'd probably be better to consider it like a road sign. Because even if you put it in the fence and it's a pasture, the cows aren't gonna leave.
yeah.
Maybe it would be better to have a road sign, Wittenberg Cemetery right along the county road.
yeah.
okay. We'll find out where we're at on them, okay, Peggy?
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Okay, we're gonna take a break now for about 7 or 8 minutes.
The one must be down to Giddy's charter.
Oh,
Must be in the section.
Yeah, not yet.
But the one
yep.
she talked about,
Take a 10-minute break.
on 10, I bet she's gonna go from.
Well, I think they should be more.
Then I know, yeah. I was.
And she said, well, we don't know if the landowners wanted fenced. I don't think the landowners got a damn thing to say about it.
I know, right?
Yeah, it is.
That happens a lot, though. I know down in Sims, you might put flowers down there and there's stuff pulled up and out,
I mean,
and
if it's
keep putting them back
just
in.
border fence, say like 2
One,
years.
they might even be farming.
Well, that's
Can you imagine going through there with a school, for Southwest Missouri?
And then dig up the bone.
Someone in Gene fences, well, if you
And you got trouble.
Gene fence,
Yeah, that's the whole point here. Our job is to keep our small.
town.
Well, we just
had one
If they know it's there.
for Dwayne here. Dwayne brought one last year.
Yeah, you had one last year, cemetery up north there.
Yeah, that was up north there by south of Silas.
She just wanted to put signs up there. I think there was a fence already there
I
or
think
something.
they had some kind of.
But that one there wasn't abandoned.
Oh,
They
that's a,
didn't want to release the names of the people buried there in the book.
And, you know, because we thought, first we thought there were three, and then there were six. So that's,
That's the trick, they gotta be abandoned before the county's responsible.
tombstones with rocks about.
Because they're not abandoned, then it's the church or the owner or whoever, they're responsible.
And then, it's in the corner, of some property.
And we had that one south of Beulah too,
yes, yeah, Kessler.
halfway south down.
How many cemeteries are there? Oh, well, King Nelson, they did a survey and they had people.
They have a book at the county museum. But that one there, somebody came in and they said it was abandoned, and it didn't take long afterwards, somebody
Was buried.
buried there.
Yeah, and as.
So it's not abandoned. It's just that the family
To do this.
that has the most people buried there didn't want to take care of it.
It was just an odd situation, and me and I belong to the historical society, and thought, well, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then the boys said, well, you know, we don't wanna bother with the fence in the corner, that's a hayfield, but, you know, I was just thinking, you know, the sign, or if we, even there, if we don't get a sign for that one, maybe make Dorothy happy and put the sign up somehow, yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
Because she said there's people coming back looking for family. Yeah, and that happened at our place too, that 7 years ago, a gentleman pulled in the yard and was looking for a cemetery, you know, where he's looking for his family. And at the time, I didn't know of this cemetery over there.
I'm sure. I know there's some like this, north and east, really long. Up there by Red and Hay, they're adopted this year, but even though those types of people come by there, they're in those ditches, they used to own ranches.
Yeah,
That was gonna stop because of these.
yeah. Well, both Ron and Wes said that they, at the Swittenberg Cemetery, they have a rock buried in there. Yeah. They need that, you know. Yeah, so, anyway, I said, well, I'll go see if we, you know,
Yeah, if they don't ask, don't know.
that's right. If you don't ask, you
Yeah.
don't get anything. But anyway, you know, the county needs to be aware
Right. Oh,
of
I
this
agree.
because of pipelines, and water lines. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
I'll get all this.
Yeah. I got Paula and the kids coming out. Works cemetery. And, those kids had such a good time doing that. Out, you know. Yeah. Okay, well, thanks.
I'll clean it up a little bit.
Okay. You sticking around, Ken, or?
Yeah, I got that salary.
Oh. What
Geez,
about
I
that
totally
deal?
forgot all about that.
Yeah, you
It's
got,
at 11 o'clock.
you got a meeting at 11, huh?
Yeah.
So we're done by then, that's good, we're out of here.
No. They're gonna give a report of the meeting.
Yeah, I'm not on that committee though.
Doesn't matter, to the commission. You have to do that listening part we were just talking about.
Huh?
But I am gonna
We don't
straight,
have any money.
I'm glad you brought up that letter thing, cause I had that written up here too.
Which one?
Here's what I was gonna suggest, but I like your suggestion better. If they can't come up with a 10%, I agree with you, they need to come up with something, or else we're gonna pick.
Yeah, we don't wanna be,
We're $300,000.
we don't wanna be pioneers, do we? We'll be the only county not requesting reductions. Wanna keep that and
No,
come
it's-
later?
Yeah, it's, we're gonna revise it because,
Say, do you want me to get you a copy of that? Well, you're coming tomorrow, aren't you?
Yep. Yeah, no, I know where the hangout is.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all right. I don't know if it's coming today or.
Well, you know what happened? I think I just got it in the email yesterday.
Oh.
So, you know,
So then-
you're, what,
yeah.
you're,
Snail mail won't make it that fast.
no,
Got it.
you're used to Ricky having it, she could usually put that in the, Friday before the meeting, so you'd have it like on Monday or Tuesday, so a couple days before the meeting.
And
So this gal's just catching up with stuff, so she's a little late, because she didn't send the minutes out either, so I asked her, and then she sent those. She's just getting used to the position.
yeah, and there's so much, you know, and goes on, and then they say, oh, yeah, this guy needs just send it out, you know. Well, the next time she was kind of, you know, trained under her, but then you forget
Yeah,
those things.
you're gonna need to just get a computer so you can get these things.
I know, it's not right at this particular moment.
Why? You put your farm records and everything on there.
Yeah, I know, but somebody's gotta put that on, and they're supposed to be out in the machine, exercising the machine, cut hay,
Yeah.
or chase it down and then go cut it.
Do you know what the status is with the fair? I know that the fair itself was obviously canceled.
I
They had
think-
talked about maybe doing
I
some,
think they're just having their 4-H show type things going on and that kind of stuff.
This fall.
Yeah,
that'll be later in the year.
yeah, Dwight will let you know. I think that's in August sometime. Kinda like the old, achievement days type stuff.
Oh, yeah.
is that better?
We're gonna need to get you a bigger copy here.
You're 15%.
I mean, you know.
He needs legal size paper.
Yeah, I'm asking a question.
Yeah, or more, but
Yeah, I got a lot of comments on there.
You've done
I
well.
know I'm a fortune teller, but I'll be telling some fortune here in a little bit, but it's not gonna look good. I wish I was a real fortune teller and could see what the, report that the legislative council is gonna get on the, state
Walk me
revenues.
through with this one, the one thing I did not grasp in the discussion was where that 300,000 for the general fund.
Just using the numbers, she's gonna be 123,000.
Correct.
But we started the year with this much. That's gonna be gone too.
Okay, so this is how much just from this year.
No, we started the year with this, that's gonna disappear, and we're still gonna be that much short. So you add that number to that number, and that's how she got her 300K.
Okay, that's how much short. Yeah, so we have this on hand, or have this on hand, use all of that, and also this much for the total.
Morning.
That's really close to the numbers that I had.
That's some good numbers. Now, who knows what happens in between yet? And hopefully that,
I came up with 400,000, so that's, we're gonna go with what she has, that's enough. It gives us the idea.
Right, it's all estimate, anyway, at least the revenue.
Yep.
Going forward.
And I took reduction factors on revenue and everything too. Yeah, she did a good job. We're gonna talk about that a little bit farther down the line here. Okay, we're gonna call the meeting back to order here.
Oh, they are.
It's because it's a 4.
Okay, we're gonna call the meeting back to order. $11, well, that's still got 2 minutes yet. Let's go to portfolio updates. Dwayne, do you have any portfolio updates?
Just a little bit, we have the ambulance board meeting next week, June 22nd at 6 PM in Hazen. Landfill's doing okay, they're really busy, there's being some buildings demoed. They had a small fire out there on Sunday, was combustion of grass, and they put dirt on it, and the Hazen Fire Department did go out. There's been no word from the engineer on that capping project yet. He didn't get back to us. And we had to get the main cylinder fixed on the compactor. Cost over $2,000 for a repair. And that's about it.
Where are we at with the possible sale of the tractor?
It isn't ready for sale yet.
Okay, thanks.
They're working on it.
Okay, it's 11 We have a report by the salary committee. I'm not sure who wants to report. Whoever wants to, or if a couple, come up to the microphones, please. And you have to give your name and then your comments, please.
Your name and your address and your.
Social security number,
Yeah.
date of birth.
It's just for the minutes, so people know who to talk to.
Ken Miller. Just that, we had come up, I don't know, it's been a few months since we met. Marvin was on the committee, Heather, myself, and Don. And
Put that mic up close to you. You're pretty soft-spoken.
we were just trying to come up with a salary survey to see where we could come in with the salaries within the county. And we just kind of use different, we end up going with like a 6-county deal that were comparable in size, comparable in population size. We have county size, median income, the economics. We're using the NODAC website to pull some of this information. NODACO. But what we mostly found was, I mean, there's different positions, for instance, that are for the highway department. They have operator 1, 2, and 3. They don't have no truck drivers in the NODACO portion of it. They have foremans. They don't have assistant superintendents. So the positions were not really comparable. And we also, towards one of the last meetings, there's like different positions, like for instance, Shanna's position where it's the auditor and the treasurer combined. So you can't really compare an auditor to an auditor or an auditor to an auditor / treasurer too. And that was with the 6 counties, some of those positions like that did have that. So you're not really comparing apples to apples. So, but we had decided what we want to do is to resort back to what Tanya did with that initial salary survey, get a quote from her and to update the one that we have.
To see what her recommendation
Right,
is
her.
on how to correctly update it, or if she believes we need to start fresh and do a new survey.
So what is the exact request you have?
We're asking the board to request an appointment with Tanya Weiler to get her to explain thinking and recommendations and ask if she may want a fee for that.
Can you repeat that? Requesting board approval for an appointment with Tanya?
Yeah, Tanya Weiler.
What's the last name again?
I think it's
Weiler. Correct, yep.
correct, yep.
Just, 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 just,
to see if she recommends updating or starting fresh.
Correct.
How to correct.
Or
the
just for
outdated-
recommendations?
Or how,
Just recommendations. we can
Just
put.
recommendations,
Just to get
yeah,
a recommendation,
yeah.
whether we need to update or start fresh.
No, not those last two words. We're just looking for her recommendations for, to proceed. We don't want to limit to those two things. We want her to give us her, whatever she has. Is that correct?
So you guys are requesting approval just to speak with her, and if she sends you an estimate or a quote
Then
to
you'll bring-
proceed, you'll come back in front of the board and ask for those dollars.
right.
Is that what I'm understanding?
Does it cost money to have her estimate done, or is she free?
Don't know that. I don't, her estimate probably, I have visited with her way in the past and recently as a private citizen without any obligation to the county, and that's why we said we're gonna come here. She will probably provide an estimate, and I don't think she charges to provide an estimate, no different than anybody else. I don't know that for certain, but
She never did in the past.
never, no company that I know of, they generally provide an estimate, and that's their cost. And, yeah, so,
And who is she and what she got for being able to do this decently, or?
she's a consultant for counties for various roles, as I understand it. We visited with her last year at the state convention down at the,
She's an HR consultant, and
Yep.
she works, her own business, Dakota Dynamics, I believe it's
yeah.
called.
She works a lot with counties.
And it might just be as simple as her saying, you know, this is how you would update because it was done in 16, you know, what's happened since 16, and it might just be that simple and, you know, to change, plug in numbers in the spreadsheet.
So your request is just to set up an appointment with her, give her specifically what your questions are, and let her come up with recommendations and an estimate and for time and cost for her to do so?
Yes.
I was on this committee too, so it isn't, I want them to use their words, but I think that's pretty much what we were discussing together.
So Marvin, how did you just word that? Have her do what?
Provide recommendations on how she would recommend to proceed with the salary survey for time and cost. To include time and cost for her to do so. And what I would offer, now, we're all here together, so I'm just offering this. I would offer that a single person of our committee contacts her rather than all four of us at different times asking the same questions in different ways. That's what I would recommend. And I would also recommend that it be one of you three so that as a commissioner, I remain more neutral. I'm willing to do it, but that's how I feel.
I'll do it,
Okay?
if that's okay.
Okay, so we're gonna let Shanna write down, Heather will let Shanna read what she wrote down and see if that's what you agree with, and we'll proceed from there.
So you want me to just summarize everything you just
Yes.
said in the last 7 minutes? To provide a recommendation of how she would proceed with an estimate to include time and cost to do so. I'd offer a single person for the committee contacts her, one of you three, so I remain neutral as a commissioner. And Heather said, I'll do it.
That's what I said.
Okay.
Is that what you want to present to the commission?
Yes, yeah, that I would contact her if that's okay.
Is there any discussion from the commissioners? We may need to add that if she has a cost, you would approach the commissioners before any agreement was made.
Well, that would have to happen anyway.
Right, I just want it clear.
Yeah, no, that has to-
Okay,
it's not-
any further discussion by the commissioners?
Do you want that in the form of a motion?
Yes, let's put that in a motion.
I'll make a motion that we give the salary committee the go-ahead to contact Tanya Weiler and get costs and time estimates.
And recommendations.
And recommendations.
I'll second it.
You will let Shanna read it back to us, please?
Berger moved, we give the salary committee a go-ahead to contact Tanya Weiler to get cost and time estimates and recommendations.
Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, are we going to have recommendations before we have the cost and time adjustment? You know, she's probably not gonna do this until we pay her something. If we say, well, we're not gonna do that, we probably won't get any recommendations.
I don't understand your question, say that again.
Okay, we're asking to get recommendations, correct, from this gal?
She probably won't give them until she gives us the estimate and we agree to that.
She'll say it's gonna cost us this much to get the estimate, then we agree to pay the estimate, then we'll get the recommendations.
Mhm.
Well, she might give recommendations of how she would adjust it, but not give us the substance until after we've paid it. She might,
Well, it'd be nice if we could get the whole works without any payment. See what you can do with that.
I don't think you're gonna get the beef and the hoof and everything at once, no.
No, we'll just get the
You
tail.
want that quote in the paper?
Yeah, put that in the paper, that'll be a good one.
You can scratch that out of the minutes, it's not that
Okay.
important.
Call a question?
Okay, any further discussion?
These days.
Call a question.
Dwight, how do you vote?
Aye.
Dwayne?
Aye.
Merlin?
Aye.
Wayne?
I'll vote aye.
I vote aye, motion passed. Thank you.
You can ask Dwayne if he's gonna vote?
Dwayne?
Yes.
I thought he said
seconded it.
aye, I thought I went through the list.
I said aye.
No, I did.
Thanks,
Dwight-
you guys.
Dwayne first.
Good luck.
I may have missed him.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can you, now that we're under other business, right, we're off the.
Yes.
Can we take up the, wind moratorium issue? I've
Absolutely.
got somebody in jail, and this will be quick.
Yes.
Just wanted to update that we received, I think, what did you say, 38?
It actually ended up being 36, because one lady said she didn't reside, and we got 2 from one.
Okay, 30-plus petitions related to the wind moratorium.
Petitions or signatures for a petition?
No, petitions.
Okay.
Requesting a hearing related to the wind moratorium. If you'll recall, that resolution, we had incorporated the Century Code provision requesting separate hearing. Under that provision, the hearing has to be held within 30 days. And so today's purpose, all we wanted to do was bring that to your attention and set that separate hearing. And we were looking at July 1st, which is a regular day. It has to be separate from the regular meeting. But we were looking to set the hearing for this July 1st at 1:30.
So we'd have a regular meeting in the morning and that in the afternoon.
Right.
Is there any discussion?
Well, I
So-
suppose a motion needs to be made to set that hearing date.
Correct.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
How am I gonna word that? Set hearing date, I got the date, but for,
Set a public hearing for July 1st at 1:30.
for what?
That's-
Wind farm.
That's to consider the
Oh.
petitions.
Wind farm
Yeah,
moratorium.
related to the petitions,
How about wind farm moratorium?
yeah,
Related to the petition.
yeah, to hear the petitions requesting separate hearing related to the wind moratorium.
Jessica, would you send me a copy of those petitions when you
I
get?
got
Yeah,
them all
she's-
right here.
Yep,
Okay.
she's got them, that she'll give them out to you guys today.
Never mind.
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Merlin, how do you vote?
Aye.
Dwayne?
Aye.
Wayne?
I'll vote aye.
Dwight?
Aye.
I vote aye, motion passed.
Okay, so that's all I needed.
Move to set the public hearing July 1st, 1:30 to hear petitions on the moratorium. Is that right?
1:30 you say, okay. Right or 1?
1:30.
Huh.
And that's obviously here.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
We were gonna have it at our secret meeting place.
Okay. I think somebody in jail.
Then you wouldn't know.
okay, next thing on our agenda is next thing on our agenda is financial software report. I put that on there. I would like to please table that. I wrote up a financial software report, and I need to summarize it better than I did. So I'd like to table that to our next meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Merlin?
Aye.
Dwight?
Aye.
Wayne?
Aye.
Dwayne?
Aye.
And I vote aye, motion passed. So that's done with.
Next meeting,
Yes. Please,
you guys are looking at today, and
we're trying to.
I know my hand's not keeping up. Hold on, Merlin made the motion.
Yep.
Who second?
Dwayne?
Thank you.
I think you
Dwight
did.
seconded.
Dwight said
Dwight
it.
seconded.
Okay,
My hand doesn't go that fast.
You should just have your,
Maybe you have to buy me one.
you got one.
okay, the next one on the agenda is letters to department heads and commissioners for savings. I wrote down an idea, but Merlin said something earlier today, and I'm gonna have him clarify what he asked. We do have, per Shanna's report, a very real chance that we're gonna go in the hole in our general fund to the tune of 300K. My number was slightly higher, but hers is what we're using, and it's a good report. She did a really good job. So, I want to send out a letter to, I was going to send out a letter to all the department heads and the commissioners again, and asking them to respond, even if they don't have anything. I want it official that they don't have anything, or that they got the letter and that I want it official that they responded to our request. But Merlin had an idea that he wanted added to it, so what was your thoughts there, Merlin?
Well, my thought and motion and the whole kit and caboodle is here, I move that,
You moving now?
yep, motion, that, when we receive the, department requests back for our budgeting purposes, said requests contain at least a 10% reduction in expenditures from this year to the next fiscal year's budget.
Hold on.
So you're asking for a 10% reduction for the year 2021?
Right, for our coming budget. I'm not saying anything about right now, but that probably could be discussed, Mr. Chairman, because if we're gonna be short now,
We're gonna go back to, that's what I
Okay,
was,
hang on just a second.
okay.
So when we receive the department heads' requests back for 2021 budget, you want the department heads
At least
to
10%.
reduce budget 10%
At
for
least.
remaining of 2020?
No, that'd be, I guess I goofed up. Mr. Chairman, you're talking about for this fiscal year, that ends on December 31st.
I know, and you made a different motion, but let's fix your motion.
Well, we're still working on it because I'm not
Right,
following.
stay with yours.
So we want to talk about next year or this year? Mine says for next year.
All right.
Is that what you want it to say, or do you want it to be for 2020's budget?
I want it for this year's coming up, for the 2021 budget.
Department head to reduce overall budgets,
Requests.
budget requests.
Can I clarify as well that the 10% is that from this year's budget, 10% reduction from what this year's was, or 10%
No.
from what they're requesting?
From what
What they're
they're,
requesting for next year.
so the motion
It
reads,
doesn't make any sense.
when we
Yeah.
receive department heads,
Doesn't
department
make sense.
requests for 2021 budget, department heads are asked to reduce their overall budget request by 10%.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Let's just have one person talking at a time. 10% of what? 10% of the 2019 amount that was budgeted,
No, you were in 2020.
the 2020?
Here's
Do you want the 2021 budget to be 10%
Less than 2020.
less than the 2020?
Yes, at least.
Okay, that's what we need to
Because here's
clarify.
my budget now, and I'm gonna be coming in with my new budget, but I'm gonna be
Okay,
reducing this.
now let Shanna read
So
the
if my
motion.
budget's 100,000 for 2020, you want me to come in and present you a budget for 90,000? Okay,
Okay, now,
For 20, yeah.
for 2021.
let Shanna write it down and then read it back
That's,
to us.
well, I have what he, so when we receive department requests back for the 2021 budget, department heads are to reduce their overall budget request by 10%
10% of what?
Of what they had
of
this
their
year.
request, of their budget request.
No, it doesn't work, Shanna.
Well, that's what he said.
I know it, but he clarified that since then. He said of the 2020 budget.
I have that. No, he didn't say 2020. He said
Okay.
2021.
We're good, right? Merlin's your motion.
All right, what I'm looking at here is, we're gonna be having budget hearings coming up shortly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Department people are gonna be coming in with their budget requests for that hearing. When they come in with a budget request, I want them with their budget requesting 10% less than we gave them this year in the budget.
Thank you.
And that's exactly what I've written.
No, read your request. Read it to me.
Department heads are to reduce their overall budget request by 10%. And the beginning says, when we receive department requests for the 2021 budget, they are to reduce their overall budget request by 10%.
Of the 2020 amount.
No,
That's what he just got done saying, Shannon. You can't do what you said. Let's just say, for example, let's say my budget's 100,000 now. Next year, I think it should be 120%, but I'm gonna ask for 110 because you asked for a 10% reduction. In other words, I still got a gain. That doesn't work. We have to have a basis, what 10%? And he just got done saying, per the 2020 budget amount. He said that.
I didn't hear the per the 2020 budget amount. Is that what you want added to your motion?
Yeah, I'll try explaining it again here a
Well,
little.
how about you just make your motion? You don't have to explain it, just make your motion and I'll rewrite it.
Okay. You know, we goof around here, I'm gonna say 15%, no.
Yeah, be careful.
What my motion is that we are requesting that department budgets for the 2021 fiscal year, beginning January 1st, 2021, contain a decrease of at least 10% of the amount appropriated for the 2019-20, or no, I guess it'd be 2020 fiscal year. So that that is saying, okay, like we said, if we get $100,000 in this line item for our budget, I'm requesting that they bring in 10% reduced out of that amount for the next fiscal year. And that has nothing to do if we're gonna be doing any cutting with the current year's budget. I'm talking about for next year.
Okay, so we are requesting department budgets for 2021 fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2021, contain a 10% decrease
In the amount appropriated for the 2020 fiscal year.
Okay. Thank you.
Are we still confused?
No, no. Clear as mud.
And you want me to do some more explaining, or is that good enough?
No, it's pretty wordy, but it works.
Do you want to know why I have that budget out there or anything, or
We'll
no?
get that to the discussion part of it, but first, we have a motion, and I'll have Shanna read it back to us, then we'll go for a second.
Merlin moved, we are requesting department budgets for 2021 fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2021 contain a 10% decrease in the amount appropriated for the 2020 fiscal year.
Do we have a second? Do we have a second? I will second that motion. we have any discussion?
That's fine and dandy, but I think you need to go back and do some research on the departments that haven't been honoring our requests for budget reductions in the past. Some of these departments are down to where there is no more. I mean, we have department heads walking around picking up paper clips.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, sir.
Dwight, this is just an idea out there, but I realize that, because I visited with some of them that are at bare bone, because we sliced her pretty good last year. So, you know, these will come in, they'll come in with their hearings and things like that, we might figure, yeah, well, you know, it just doesn't work that way. And like I said earlier, we may end up going to the taxpayers for a mill levy increase. If that happens, well, so be it. But I'll give you guys the rest of my stuff right now so we can get it out of my system. When we're looking at finances and possible revenues coming in, just take a look at what the state is having. And I sure wish that we were in middle of July here so we got the revenue projections that the state's gonna be getting at their legislative, council meeting. But if we have an election that doesn't go for our beautiful way here in November, and I'm talking about the presidential election, we could well be sitting here with no fracking, no coal, any of that kind of stuff, and then what are we gonna do? Mercer County is holding the bag over there right now for their plant closing down. Imagine where we would be if the whole business shuts down here. So I'm just trying to kind of think ahead here, because taxes are fine, but if people can't pay them, then what? Just like we talked about last meeting, we're getting properties back and things like that with the special assessments and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, we're losing our tax base.
We could, and Shanna, what happens if we say, well, we're broke here at Mercer County, we don't have any money to pay for anything? I don't think counties can go bankrupt, can they?
Nope, you'd borrow a loan from the bank until you raised your mill levies to pay them back.
Yeah, pay back.
Can I say something, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
I know I'm on the same page as Dwight, that, what would you say, 90% of our departments are small, have 1, 2, or maybe 3 people in them, and probably at least 96% of our budget is salaries. That leaves us $500 to maybe $1,000 for paper clips and pens and notepads. I would not advise the board take away education and meetings from our staff. Most of those are all webinars, but they still cost $35 a piece, but we need to be educated so we know how to do our jobs. I don't know that it's feasible for my department or anybody in this courthouse to cut by 10% unless you plan on cutting staff.
And you can tell us that when you come in for your budget hearing.
Okay, but I just want you to keep that in mind, that 96% of my budget is salaries.
Okay,
I'd like to, go ahead, sir.
I'm still going here if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman.
I'm listening. Continue.
All right. And yes, that's probably true, but the thing is, if we raise that mill levy and those tax statements get sent out to our patrons, and the phone's ringing, what each of us is gonna have to do is say, yes, we've done everything possible to not do this, but in order to provide services and county function, we have to do this. Because, these other incomes just aren't coming in there, like Shanna said, we're stuck, we're kinda at our areas here with a lot of salary. The only other way to get around that would be to decrease positions,
Yep.
and that is, reduction in force.
Well, there's one department that needs to get back to where they were before this office, or jail expansion, courthouse expansion. That I know for sure.
You done?
For now, yeah.
Good. I'd like to make a comment. Our county has a decreasing population, so we have less people paying for all of our services. So we have less people paying for our services, that means it gets to be more expensive. And I don't see where we can continue to raise our taxes, because we're driving, to me, raising our taxes makes me not want to live here. We need to promote economy and get people to come into our county.
Yeah.
So I am totally against raising taxes at this point. We, in my opinion, our county is overspending.
I agree.
And it just proves it with this report that shows that our general fund every year is short. Shannon made the comment, we budgeted expenses almost 100% of what revenue was for our general fund, and if something changes, we're short. And we're projected to be short again, $300,000 in our general fund this year. I am in full support of what Merlin suggested. We need to cut our expenses, if that includes services. We have been overspending. The data I've passed out has shown that. I'm in full support of what Merlin is requesting.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, sir.
Another thought. We can't really start budgeting process without a good, solid revenue forecast, I believe. That's our starting point. Revenue forecast for next year. A solid revenue forecast. Because how in the world can we do any budgeting without that to begin with?
It's a little bit different subject, but go ahead.
Well, it entailed with this because, like you said, if our revenues are different than what we project when we're putting the budget together, here we are.
We won't have those solid numbers till mid-July is what I was told yesterday.
Well, at least we'll have them by then, that'll be okay, because mid-July is when we start our hearings.
Okay, that subject I agree with. It doesn't have to do with your motion.
Okay. Sorry, I'll talk more later about stuff.
I'm not against it by any means. I agree, we do need to cut budgets, but, I think we need to look at certain departments as where we're gonna have to do our cutting.
That's where it would come from. It may include all or some.
We can do that when we do our hearings, Dwight.
Oh, we did that in the past, looked at some departments and
Absolutely. So we have a motion on the floor and a second, and I'll please have Shanna read it back to us again.
Can I find it? We're requesting department budgets for, hold on, let me cross this one. We're requesting department budgets for 2021 fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2021 contain a 10% decrease in the amount appropriated for the 2020 fiscal year.
Is that what you said?
Yes, and just one more question now, that has not dealing with this year's budget.
Nope.
That'll be later.
Yeah.
All right. Call the question.
Is there any further discussion?
Well, just briefly, just a comment to, I've got two entities already that kind of set their budget up, but we're gonna have to go back and redo the budget. I mean, they got it set up already for the budget hearing, but we're gonna have to go back and redo it.
Correct.
So,
Well, this was just for departments, wasn't it?
well, it's-
Was this all it?
This is for anything that we supply dollars to. Because I know we got library board coming up shortly here,
So-
we're gonna be talking about that budget too.
Can I ask a question? Should I be sending a letter to every
You
taxing
almost-
district that the board's requesting this?
You
Because I'm
almost
pretty
should,
sure a lot of them
because-
have already had their budget talks and worked on their budgets.
worked on our
And
budget
then they
sheets.
come in
and-
here expecting X amount of dollars. And
Yeah,
then
I mean-
we throw
Yeah.
at them, well, we want you to reduce it 10%.
I guess
Well,
that,
if this passes, you're gonna, right, I would suggest that's what you gotta do.
you have the ambulance board, all of them, I
Yeah.
mean.
Commission on Aging, Library Board.
Merlin,
Weed Board.
okay, it's Merlin's motion, so he's the one that has to answer that question.
I thought he was just talking department heads.
Well, I was figuring everybody, but
Well, that has to be defined. It's a
Yep.
very valid.
Yep.
Um,
Because to come up with those kinds of dollars, just a few departments is not gonna make it.
In answer to Shanna's comment that in a way we're pulling the rug out from under, like, do this over again, things evolve and they change. And we're trying to keep up with the information that we got. So yes, we are a little late, but with the information we have now it's time to do it.
Well, here's another way around that. I can make a motion that, I'm not right now, Shannon, so don't put that down, and, the tar and feather kettle probably is gonna get started up out in the parking lot.
Let's start right here.
But I could make a motion that, at this point, we freeze all of our budgets at this year's levels and be done with it. We don't even need budget hearings then, because what you got this year is what you got next year.
That would make my world pretty easy, but I don't think we have the revenue as we did last year. 'Cause we've got special assessments to pay for
See,
now too.
that's what I'm saying.
We're already increasing
That
taxes.
doesn't work, Merlin.
We've got it frozen, but our revenues are gonna be
Okay.
less.
So
So
we-
anyway, this is a starting point.
We have a motion.
But yeah, I'd say all areas need to have that letter, and if they need to redo their stuff,
Okay, when you say all areas, that was the question.
anything that we provide dollars to out of our county, like the ambulance board, library, the whole works.
Anything we provide county dollars to?
Yeah.
Any budget, it should say, instead of anything, huh?
Yep. So I'll be picking the tar and feathers off. You guys are off the hook now, it's on me.
Looks like the landfill will be okay because they're not on our county
Perfect.
dollars, so. We got one entity.
Yeah, they'll be coming in with their budget
Okay,
request though.
Shanna, will you please read the motion again?
Well, that wasn't added to the motion, that's just in the comments underneath. Because it was clarified, Wayne Enzi asked, is this every taxing district? And Merlin said, any budget we provide county dollars to.
So that's pretty well
So that's in
done.
the discussion underneath the motion. It'll be included in the minutes underneath the motion though. Because it was just clarification, I don't think you need to change his motion.
Now we got everybody confused. but
No, we
that's-
don't.
No, I think we're on the same page, I think we're okay.
It's up to, I'm hesitating because it's up to Merlin whether he wants to change his motion or not.
Do you want it changed,
Well, Wayne can amend it to add that if he wants.
or it's in the discussion underneath it? Is that enough? Because it's gonna be before the roll call vote, so it's underneath the motion in the second,
Yes, we'll add.
and then it'll be in the discussion, and then,
Let's add that, yes, that's how I feel.
so you want it left in the discussion then, right before roll call vote? That it's to include any budget we provide county dollars to.
I would prefer it was in the motion, so it's one thing, but it's up to you.
Let's put it in the motion, as a part of the motion.
Okay.
So I'm digging in deeper. But
Well,
be clarified better that way for everybody.
Well, you need to make it clear which way,
Yeah.
what,
All right. Got it.
okay, I'm ready. Go, please read it back. I know we have to
Do you have this memorized? You read it to us.
You're getting there.
We're requesting department budgets for 2021 fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2021 contain a 10% decrease in the amount appropriated for the 2020 fiscal year for any budget we provide county dollars to include any budget.
so you're gonna have to get rid of the department head at the beginning of the motion?
We're requesting just budgets. We're requesting budgets for 2021.
If you say departments, then it's just,
Okay.
There we go. Got it.
Do you agree with that? You had the second.
Did I-
No.
Dwayne
you
had the
had-
second. Dwayne has
no.
the second.
Marvin
Marvin, you
seconded.
had the second.
Marv, you said.
It's on this piece of paper, okay.
So I told you guys I got you all confused.
You did. Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion?
Question was what Shanna had asked if she should send a letter out to all entities.
The answer is yes.
Okay.
Merlin, how do you vote?
Aye.
I vote aye. Wayne?
I'll vote aye.
Dwight?
Aye.
Dwayne?
Aye.
Motion passed. Now we're gonna go back to what we started with. We were talking about this year's budget. And that was the letters to department heads on savings recommendations for this year. And You had a copy of that letter, I'm not sure what you did with it, you probably put it someplace. And you were talking that, earlier today, you were talking that
Right here.
you, for this year, 2020, that we follow up with that letter asking them for a reduction around 10%. Do you want to still continue with that thought?
Well, are we gonna need more than 10%? We're looking 300,000,
It's probably gonna be more than 300,000 we're short.
or do we wanna?
We
keep-
estimate that right now.
Or do we wanna keep spending down CD savings and all those types of things? I guess that's the question.
Well,
And then, once we get to that July meeting with the legislative council, are they gonna be cutting our budgets more based upon the revenue projections?
Being as you're not certain, I'm gonna start out this discussion with, on May 6th of 2020, the board chair requested from the board and all department heads a letter that due to possible revenue concerns, to review budgets and provide a recommendation for possible ways to reduce our costs. I'd like to send this letter out. I'm asking all department heads and commissioners to submit an answer to this letter, even if they don't have recommendations. This year's for the 2020 budget. Submit that letter to the auditor by June 24th, so she can present it to the board on July 1st. And I can hand you this, Shannon. You don't need to type it all over again if you don't want it.
When you say commissioners, what role do you view us playing?
You're playing that this year we possibly are short of funds. Where do you recommend we cut? So that we're not short of funds.
As individual commissioners?
As individuals, you have a right to express your, yeah. Why should one person shoulder it? You can go through our expense accounts and you look through the departments and say, we're gonna be short $300,000, we need to cut, in my opinion, here. I'm gonna pass this around.
You checking your heart rate?
It should be.
I'll read this to you guys again. Then I can hand it to Shannon, so you don't need to type it all over again. May 6th of 2020, board chair requested from the board of and all department heads via a letter that due to possible revenue concerns, to review budgets and provide recommendation of possible ways to reduce costs for 2020. I'm asking all department heads and commissioners to submit an answer to this letter, even if they do not have any recommendations to the auditor by June 24th, for presenting to the board for our July 1st meeting. I'm asking our auditor to notify all department heads of this notice. We are looking for a possible 10% savings. I'm not sure that we need a motion for this. Does anybody object to, does anybody want to read it? Pass it around? Does anybody object to having our auditor do this?
Well, this again, you're just limiting it to department heads?
Yes.
I don't have an objection to it, but I think it should include a lot more than just department heads.
But if you're gonna have things come up like this tractor, I'm just pointing that out.
and the other,
The buck stops here. We shouldn't approve it.
For emergencies, That's what we have bank accounts for.
Is that an emergency?
It might be.
Well, so you're just, what's the use of going out here then and
If we know that we're gonna be $300,000 short and we still need that tractor, we have to fix the tractor. But we still can't continue to withdraw from our savings to, 20,000 is a whole lot different than 300,000 plus.
that's a big chunk out of 300? To me, anyway. But I'm just using that as an example.
It's a good example too.
But
Yeah.
the buck stops here. We shouldn't,
So is that, you're saying that's, I agree with you, you're right. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
but we have department heads and people come in here and ask to spend money for this and money for that. We should maybe start saying no.
That would be, the answer, you're correct.
I mean, like Ken said, he doesn't know if something comes up, if there'll be money to pay for that in his budget. So,
And if it doesn't come up, then he did have the money though.
well, yes, do we really know that?
Yeah, we don't. So we make the decision on the information we have at the time.
But we have to budget for the unknowns too, Marvin.
Right.
There's
I know
been
that-
many years that,
Right.
like Wayne can
That's
tell
a
you
good
about
point.
if it blizzards and the road crew is working around the clock. And, it's just, there's so many unknowns. If it floods and the sheriff's department's working around the clock and the road department's working around the clock. That's why most departments budget higher, like Ken, he'll never generally use all his fuel costs and things like that, but he's budgeted high just in case, because he's been here, he's seen things happen, and if it's not declared a disaster, we don't get reimbursement for it. So, I mean, we can't take all of those unknowns out of the budget either. Not that department heads should be out spending, just because they have it. And I honestly don't think most of our departments are like that. I don't go book a trip somewhere because I have a little left in my travel fund. It's, you just use what you need. Most of us are cognizant that these are taxpayer dollars and we're not just out blowing them. But I would hate for the board to cut, say, Ken's budget down to nothing, and then we have the unknowns pop up this fall, and you know what I mean?
Right.
The other, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead. Wayne, you first.
Well, I hope, I don't even know how exactly I can explain this, and I don't mean to say it the wrong way, but as a department head or the fiscal officer, if I'm losing 10%, usually these budgets, these folks have done a good job. They didn't spend the whole budget. That's what I'm wanting to say. So that helps our bottom line on the end of the year, definitely. But this could kind of trigger a deal where if I kind of really need to replace this, or this is need, and I'm not gonna get the money next year, so guess what they're gonna do?
Yeah.
They may just,
Spend
we
their
may
entire
end
budget.
up hurting ourselves and going into more of a spending frenzy because I'm not gonna get it next year for sure. So I just throw it out there. I don't know.
Merlin?
Makes sense.
Two questions, and they're both for Shanna. When you figured this thing here, Shanna, is that everybody spending every nickel they got in their budget?
Absolutely.
Right down to zero?
Right down to
Which
zero.
probably will not happen.
No, because you
No.
think about it, we've already turned away one road project that was $460,000. So Ken will never spend what I've budgeted him to spend,
You know,
right there. I mean, and granted, that's a completely different account than the general fund, what Marvin's looking at. But just things like that, there's things that people had planned to do that it might not do this year. Or that's spending the budget down to what you guys approved.
Are these budget numbers or are these expense numbers?
That's the expense budget numbers.
Okay, this is not budgetary fund numbers. This is actual revenue and actual expenses.
Okay.
The actuals are the January through May.
Correct.
Those are actuals. The revenue from June to December is my best guess estimate.
guesstimations.
And then the June through December expenditures just equals out what you approved the budget at between the two columns.
Okay. Go ahead, Merlin, your second question.
Second question is, now, I think you guys, and we talked about this before, can we start, if a budget is not spent completely, having some of that go into a contingency fund or carry over to the next fiscal year to be spent, or is that not legal to do?
The answer, I think I can answer. This is gonna cover budget for unknowns. When we budget for our general fund, in my opinion, our expenditures should only be 80% of our revenues. We don't budget 100% of our expenditures to match our revenues. If we have an unknown, we're in the hole. I've talked to the state treasurer, and our funds can have up to 75% additional funds in them than is what is on our budget. And I don't want to, the statement that I heard was that your general fund should have more than 75% because it has to cover all the shortages of the other funds. I've been on these webinars and they're talking about all these cuts because of the oil costs and so forth in these counties. Stark County said we had excess money in our budgets. We did exactly that. We're not in real bad trouble. Other counties are all in very bad trouble. So the answer to your question is yes, we can have additional monies in those funds. And in my opinion, we should never budget 100% of our revenue. If we have an unknown, we're in the hole. And that's why, in my opinion, we've gone down since 2012 in our net asset value of several $1 million. We need to change the way that practices don't work.
That's never gonna happen though, because we're not gonna know for sure what our revenue is gonna be.
We can get an
Yeah.
estimate of our revenue and then have our expenses be 80% of that. That's what budgeting is. We will not know exactly to the dollar, but we should have estimates. And we have a feeling and we have historical data. And if the DACO says that state aid is going to be cut 10%, all right, then now we have that revenue. And we go by that number. So, I passed the letter out, and I would like to know if it's okay that we request Shannon to send that to all department heads. I'll put that in a motion. I move that my letter to all department heads presented this date be sent to all department heads by our auditor. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to send a letter out. Is there any discussion? I'm going to add a comment that I think it's imperative that we do so. We are in a financial crunch. Per this report that Shanna gave us, we have to already recover $300,000. And it could be worse. Asking for them to realize we are in this crunch. And it has to do with situations beyond our control, that we try to respond to it rather than take money out of savings. Is there any further discussion?
Well, my comment is that from here on out, if somebody comes in here and requests money for something, I'm gonna say no. Our first question always is.
I agree with you.
Our first question always is to these people, and it includes the portfolios I have, do you have it in your budget?
Exactly, that's what I said.
And they say yes. So we kind of approve this thing. well, maybe we shouldn't do that no more.
Agreed. If we ask them for this 10%, then when they say, no, it's not in there anymore, then that helps us too. But at least they're aware of it too. If we leave it the way it is, they'll say, yeah, it's in our budget. And then we just say no. So I'm trying to get some buy-in and some participation by the department heads that they're part of the fix to help us with our situation. Go ahead, sir.
And Dwayne, you know, like we've said, if something comes up, well, Jim and I have been talking quite a bit about this old heating and duct system, you know, it might cost about $30,000 if it goes to pot. Well, we'll come in and say we need that, is it in the budget? No. Well, if we say no, then what? We just don't really have anything to back this stuff up. That's where, you know, Marv's talking about having this extra percentage in case we do have these contingencies that come up. Right now, we don't have that luxury. So I think that's really need to be looked at, big time.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Shannon, will you read the motion, please?
My letter to all department heads as of 6/17/20 be sent to all department heads by the auditor.
Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? I vote aye. Dwight?
Aye.
Merlin?
Aye.
Wayne?
I'll vote aye.
Dwayne?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Hope it works.
Okay. Budget amendments is something else I added to the agenda, and we've covered that today. I think what I wanted to bring to everybody's attention is that we possibly have to make some corrections to this year's budget. And we covered that. In fact, Merlin went farther and he wanted corrections to next year's. So if it's okay with you, we'll say that item has been discussed. Next item on is portfolio updates. Merlin,
No.
what did I miss?
First one.
Resolution for department head evaluations and treasurer's report.
Oh, it's way on top. Okay, treasurer's report, we covered that. If that's okay with you. She gave us that paper that says that our receipts are less than our expenses. And the other part that she relayed to me, Shanna brought up that our mineral revenue is going to stop, has stopped, and it may stop for couple of years at least. So that was our treasurer's report. And I also added on there that our coal conversion and coal severance has decreased, and I gave you that information. All right, that's treasurer's report.
What about that?
Okay, we'll move on to resolution for department head evaluations.
Treasurer's report, what about that, the Macklin taxes that need to be refunded?
That's been taken care of. Darby took care of it.
Okay.
Okay. The other one is resolution for department head evaluations. I'm not sure what that is about.
Well, you guys have been tabling and tabling and tabling and asked for it to be on this agenda. At the last meeting, you gave Merlin the direction to collect job descriptions and come up with a process, I believe. So since it was tabled to this meeting, it's on the agenda.
Good job. It should be.
Is there anything you want to talk about it, or we need to table it some more?
God, no, I got stuff here for you guys, fix you up. All right.
You opened the door, Shannon.
You got 33 minutes.
No, I got,
My kids have dentist appointments.
No,
it'll take less than that. Because
32 minutes.
what I have here
it's not mine.
is for each individual portfolio holder, I have your,
There's two mine.
Mr. Chairman,
Sorry.
I have your stuff here, and what it consists of is the process that I, am suggesting, and there's all kinds of different processes, such as not doing this at all, or doing what we have always done, which isn't a heck of a lot either, but in this thing I'm going to hand out here, it has the process listed out. It also has an assessment document here. Now, these are just recommendations I'm looking at, and also the job description that was available for each of your portfolio heads that you're in charge of. So I'll hand these out, and what we may want to do is just take this under advisement, review it, and then come back to the next meeting and talk about it some more. Like I said, if we want to do it, or if we don't want to do it,
Thank you.
we can. But anyway, what you have now is no process at all for evaluating your department head. Huh? Yeah, and Wayne, you didn't get any because you don't have any department heads that you're responsible for that you'd be evaluating.
Really?
No appointed,
They're right.
they're elected.
Question. I believe our, can't think of the word, guidelines for our county, policy states that there is a form that the auditor will provide.
It's in the policy book.
Did you include that?
Not here,
As part of
this is a whole different process.
Right, but being as we have that in our policy, I believe that needs to be,
No, the board has the final say on the policy.
I understand that.
So we like it to go through the process of the policy committee, the first and the second reading, but when the board sees something fit, they have the
We have a latitude to
authority.
disregard,
Well,
yes.
I'm in agreement, Mr. Chairman. What I'm saying here is here's what I came up with, and I
Okay.
think probably would work for the county. Now, the process as we do with it is fine if we want to put this through the policy committee to take a
Oh,
look
no,
at.
that's not what I was asking. Go ahead.
Because what this process is gonna do is each one of us is gonna sit down with the portfolio holder or the department head that we,
Please, go ahead.
like we say in here, we're gonna be sitting down, I'll be sitting down with Jim for buildings and grounds and et cetera. Everybody else will be sitting down with them. I suggest what you do is go through and take a look at the job description, because as we can see, we've got all the various kinds of job descriptions. What I'm looking at is possibly, and if we can, standardizing things. So if I'm a department chair here, department head here, here's what my job description is. It's gonna be kind of the same in format, but have my specific things in it. Because right now, it's just willy-nilly, as well, as you can see in there. And I made one of these for Shannon that's got the whole works in there, one for Jessica, because she'll have to be reviewing some stuff too. But it's not something I'm saying we should be doing today. It's something we need to take a look at, study, look at this, look at that. If we need policy committee, because they maybe should be involved with it too. But again, it's not an overnight deal, and what my process does here is says that at the December 31st meeting, or whenever we have our December meeting, that's when we bring the finalized assessment product to the full commission, so everybody gets input on it. And again, you asked for a process. This is a process I came up with. We can study, look at it. We don't have to adopt it today, and this way, like I said, you guys can get a hold of your department heads that your portfolio holders for and go over this with them. And maybe we can come up with some decent and good and, valuable job descriptions and portions that go into our evaluation form itself.
I have one comment, Merlin. County Extension, Craig Askham, we don't evaluate him.
Right.
He's evaluated by
And
the
DSU
NAC.
does that.
And I believe one commissioner always sits in on that evaluation. So
Right,
that
but-
evaluation would never happen
Okay.
in this room.
I suggest that,
So, yeah, there might be all kinds of this stuff in here, that's what,
Right.
take a look at and study and.
Merlin, Commission, I suggest that we leave this on the agenda for our following meeting. We take this home and review it individually, and if we have any questions, we discuss them further at our next meeting. Is that agreeable with you?
Yep. And for the information, I will be trying to meet with Jim and Cindy, my portfolio folks, to talk them through this, because I think the more employee input there is, the better, and they might even feel some ownership with it. And will go a lot smoother as time goes by with them. Instead of saying, well, no, here's what you got, there you are, without any input from them. I think that's important. That's all I have for that particular deal.
Does this process involve you solely evaluating them, or have you considered having the department head evaluate themselves? You also evaluate them, and then you get together and talk about how they evaluated themselves? how
Yeah,
you
it's a
evaluated
combination of everybody, like I said, it's a cooperative type effort.
Good.
Yes.
Because I think,
Not
as
just-
commissioners, you're here twice a month, you don't
Right.
really understand
Right.
the
It's
function
not
of
coming
the
in and saying,
position.
here's your evaluations, thank you.
Right.
Okay, we'll cover that at our next meeting, some individual questions.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Walk our way through it. It's probably gonna take several meetings.
If anybody has
Okay.
questions, you can give me a buzz.
We're gonna give you a break here for a second. Wayne, your portfolio holder.
Oh.
I shouldn't do that.
Well, I don't have just a whole lot. We had a weed board meeting, and you seen the cost share in the ad, so those that need to pick up chemical, go for it and go up to Senex and get it. And we had airport meeting. Again, the funding is very minimum, so our runway project is definitely on hold, so that's about all I had.
Okay, Dwight?
I was down at the Lewis and Clark Foundation planning session, that went fairly good. When the, conclusion is finalized, I will bring that if anybody wants to look at it. Fair Board has decided now that they're not gonna have anything. And they were wondering if that $50,000 the county appropriates to them every year, if they could use some of that money to help out the cities that are having some celebration.
Don't look at me, cause I'm gonna say no.
Well, that's what,
Yeah, but you're asking the question, I don't think you asked it directly, but they were wondering about that. Do you need an answer for that question today?
oh yeah, I gave it to them, tell them what how the commissioners felt about it at the next meeting.
Okay.
They're gonna do quite a bit of upkeep, or not upkeep, but stuff that needs to be fixed out there. But there's a good chance that they won't use the whole 50,000 that they got this year.
Okay.
So your question to the board is if they can
Use some of that money?
the funds from Mercer County to help out cities?
Yeah, the city individual celebrations of the cities.
No, we don't.
Either that or they're helping with this 10% reduction back business, they're doing their fair share.
Dwight, I actually think it's illegal.
Well, I'm just,
I'm gonna vote no.
that's fine, I just,
Wayne?
Wait. You had a motion?
no,
I didn't think so. We're just getting
it was
feelings?
just feelings.
Yeah, I don't think
Let me
you can
run it,
do it.
please.
You're using county funds to subsidize another county entity or a city entity. I think there's some gray area in there, but I would say no.
No,
Good. That was a pretty long answer. Merlin?
I agree with my colleagues here.
Okay, I'm not sure that we even need a motion. It was a request for some money, and we said no.
If there's no motion, there's nothing.
No, it was just how the commission felt about them doing it. Now I got my answer, go on.
Thank you. Okay. Merlin, portfolio.
Basically, all I have coming up here is planning and zoning tomorrow night. And for buildings and grounds, things seem to be operational okay. We do have some of the stripping coming out loose over here, and we do have another bid coming in for the backup battery system, so hopefully by the next meeting we can take care of that. And otherwise, we're operational as we can feel. The air conditioner is working fine. But again, that's all I have. I don't know, Wayne, you wanted to tell them that you have a county social service meeting tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I got county social service meeting tomorrow in Center, North Dakota.
In the center.
Yeah, 9 o'clock, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman, for mine.
Okay, I don't have anything on my portfolios. I just want to remind everybody that we received a packet from Shanna on our election results.
Those are the canvassed ones.
Canvas votes, everybody's got a copy of that. And we had that, was that yesterday?
Monday.
Monday, days running together already. Yeah, it was Monday. Okay, just want to, that's all I have. Is there any business that I have missed? If there be no further business, the meeting is adjourned. You can take your daughters to, where are you going?
Toofies.
Daughters, I got one daughter,
Oh,
2 sons.
Shanna,
Get those teeth pulled out, we get the tooth fairy coming in.
these precincts, is there, can a guy get, where the precinct is located?
Oh, yeah, instead of just the number? Yeah.
I mean, that's, for my own use.
Can I email it to you? You want it now?
Well, whatever works.
Can I just
mean,
email you the
yeah,
number?
just put a name behind the precinct number.
Yeah, I gotta look them up, I don't have them.
Well,
Yeah, that'd be great.
The last 7 I know for sure are, Beulah has 4, 3321 through 3324 Beulah, and then the 80s are Hazen, 3320 is Stanton, 3316 is Pick City.
Weren't they online too?
The rest of that I could, it's just by precinct number, it doesn't go by
Dan?
the name. Yeah, I'll go email it to you. Right.
and then, did you ever have time to look and see how much money is
There's the letter.
available in that, in lieu of fund?
Nope,
You
it's
asked
still
me
on
to-
my desk and I will get that on the website by the end of the week,
You're looking at a 10%.
We got that meeting.
the 20th.
The 2020 as well, separate from his 21.
It says 2020 right there.
Yeah.
Exactly. It has to-
You
it
too.
has to
It
do-
ends up being the same,
Yeah.
there's 2 different things, the rest of this year, that's the rule.
it has to do
All
with
come
this-
straight